Welcome to episode 29 of Beyond the Box Art, and we are joined by Stephen Woodhead of Gunpla UK, giving us an introduction to this genre. Your host, as usual, is Brownie, with his co-hosts Nevs and Shane.
Hiya Benchmates, and would you believe it, we are 1 year old. 12 months, 28 episodes, countless conversations, extraordinary guests from across the hobby, including exclusive industry insights, laughter, banter, and some amazing sponsors in the form of the Scale Modelling Supply, Fish Cup Models, Face Hanger Resin Accessories, Guideline Publications, and Ammo by Mig Jimenez. Thank you one and all for your support. Plus you. You have been truly incredible. A global modelling community with our Facebook Benchmates group, built around benches, brushes, glue and plastic. And all of this for our audience without monetizing or non-hobby adverts. Welcome to the start of year 2 and episode 29 of Beyond the Box Art, our first anniversary show. And what began as an idea has grown to something far bigger than we could have ever imagined. From workbenches across the UK to listeners in 82 countries worldwide, this show has become a home for modelers of all genres, every scale and every passion. And for this milestone episode, we wanted a guest who represents innovation, growth and one of the fastest evolving corners of the hobby. So joining us today is Stephen Woodhead, Director of Gunpla UK, as we dive deep into the ever-expanding world of Gunpla, mecha modelling, community building, and what it takes to bring one of the hobby's most exciting sectors to an ever-growing audience. And before you say it's not for me, this conversation goes into the detail of production processes that are starting to cross over into the, for the want of a better term, mainstream hobby. Whether you're a hardened armour builder, an aircraft purist, a naval historian, or someone curious about the incredible engineering and artistry behind Gundam modelling, this episode is all about broadening the horizons. Because Beyond the Box Art has always been more than just the models. It's about the people, the passion, the story that brings the hobby to life. So settle in, clear some space on the bench, grab a brew, and join us as we celebrate one remarkable year of the show. Episode 29 starts now. It wasn't until I was just starting to write the intro for the show that I suddenly realised, it's a year.
And how far it's come in a year is unbelievable.
Isn't it just? So for this episode, I'm joined by Shane.
How's it going, Benchmates?
Nevs.
Hi all, happy anniversary.
And myself. So, buckle in, here we go. So let's find out with what we've got on our benches, starting with Nevs. What have you been beavering away at since the last time you were on?
I don't know if I'd use that phrase, Brownie, but I am still working away at the Scharnhorst mainly. I've done a little bit of work on the Nassau, just in terms of getting first layers of paint down. But yeah, the main work is definitely Scharnhorst, trying to get finished for our annual build, the next build competition at Bolton, which is in June. So no pressure there. Like I said on the last episode, these Flyhawk kits, you have to be a fan of what you're building to continue with it, because the detail on them is insane. So I'm currently working away on the Scharnhorst's main funnel, and to get at some of the details, thankfully I bought myself a couple of the volumes on the Scharnhorst with the 3D pictures. So one's obviously a Stefan Draminski one, and then the other I've not got to hand, but they're both from Polish designers. And that is pretty much the best way of finding out where all of the piping and things like that go. So by the end of this build, I'll be able to tell you where all of the pipes of Scharnhorst lead to and things like that. So yeah, definitely a labour of love at the moment.
We'll be asking questions.
But I've been a bit inspired by James Skiffins and the work he's doing with his Akagi. So he's got a minute-by-minute account of when the decisive bomb hit the deck, and that's when he's basing his build on. So the Scharnhorst I'm going to do in a seascape for the competition, and the exact moment I'm going to recreate is at 12:21 on Boxing Day 1943. And that's when Scharnhorst conducted this really dramatic about turn. So I'm going to show it in the diorama, really sticking its arse out, trying to get away from 3 British cruisers, the Sheffield, Belfast, and one of the other cruisers as well. So it got its radar knocked out at roughly the same time. But that was really, Scharnhorst literally in its death throes, a bit like a crocodile rolling. It's this dramatic about turn to try and escape these cruisers, all while it's firing to stern. So I'm going to mark the sides of the diorama with 12:21 and things like that.
So you're planning to put the other 3 ships chasing it as well, Nevs, or is this just the Scharnhorst on itself?
Just the Scharnhorst. Now, I have got some shell splashes from Warlord games, so I think I'll try and use those to simulate the shots landing at either side of it as the cruisers tried to make the range. But yeah, because the competition is dinner mat size, I think I'd be breaking the rules adding the 3 cruisers alongside.
Can you have 3 dinner mats?
Well, I even asked for the annual build competition. Obviously, ships never sail alone apart from the Scharnhorst, whether it's possible to do a mini vignette of a little flotilla, and even for the annual build competition, that's a no. So these are very much lone wolves, which I know Scharnhorst definitely was. Some of the US and Japanese counterparts definitely weren't. But yes, very much be on its own, unfortunately.
And this is the Bolton IPMS annual competition.
Yeah, so we're going to have 2 competitions this year. The first one is the Dinner Mat Challenge. That's in June. So that's what I'm trying to do Scharnhorst for now. And then we've got the annual build competition. Now, it might be that I submit Brandenburg for that one, because that'll be a bit more of a display piece with a bit of the harbour scene from Hamburg in the background. So that might take a little bit longer than Scharnhorst anyway.
So I was going to say, I think we need one of Nev's naval history stories on the Scharnhorst, because I'm not familiar with what went on in terms of ships during the war.
Well, be fair, we'll let him prep for the next episode.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll make that an episode 30 little featurette, but I'll just give you this little snippet of information. So obviously the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, they were the preceding ships to the Bismarck class. So they're very much coming the transition from the pocket battleships of the Weimar period to the full-fat battleships of the German Kriegsmarine. And they were quite underarmed for battleships. They only carried 11-inch guns. They were very much designed to be raiders, commerce raiders, but they were faster, similar to the pocket battleship design philosophy. They were faster than anything that could kill them and better armed than anything that could catch up to them. So when Gneisenau and Scharnhorst encounter repulse in 1940, it's a pretty near-on thing in terms of capability. But the Gneisenau's written off in early 1943, whereas the Scharnhorst is one of the last survivors of the German fleet in the north. So it sails out on around about Christmas Day of 1943 in search of one of the Arctic convoys. But little do they know this convoy is being used as bait to lure it out. So Admiral Fraser's there with the home fleet, and you can imagine how the rest of the story goes, which I'm sure we can cover in episode 30.
I thought that was an episode on its own, let alone an appraisal of what's coming up.
That was the synopsis. That was the synopsis.
A synopsis, I love it.
Okay, and what have you been spending your cash on?
This will be even briefer.
Oh.
Nothing.
Ah.
But we touched on, I think, the stash in the last episode about some of the Japanese kits coming out, things like the Mogami and the Kumano. So they're going to be on the shopping list, definitely.
Okay. With that then, Shane, what you got on your bench?
So I am in the final throes of Gundam Death Scythe. It's been painted, glossed, deckled. I just need to put a wash on it and then seal it up one final time. Quite happy with it, how it's come out. It's done pretty well, actually, in terms of, let's just put it on there on the camera for you guys. I know our listeners won't be able to see, but it's pre-shaded. There's about 60 or so, maybe 100 decals all over it. But I've tried something different with this one, and I've sent a couple of images out to you guys in private, but I painted up, for those that don't know Gundam Death Scythe, it basically wields a giant laser scythe. So it comes with clear green plastic in the kit, which looked a bit tacky. It does look quite effective, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something a bit different. So I've sprayed it up and used the colours out of the anime. So it's got like a white, I'll post some pictures on it on our page, but it's got a white middle with the green laser on the extremities, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a extra dimension, I suppose. And in addition to that, I've actually been building with the boys, which has been really lovely over the last couple of weeks. Edward and I, mainly Edward, he's finished his Lamborghini, his Airfix starter kit Lamborghini, which he's been using the paint pens. He's used the metallic paint pens, which are out of my Gundam drawer. So we've got a two-tone green and blue Lamborghini. And then Jacob and I have been building his RG. We'll come on to terms in a little while in the episode, but his RG Gundam Epion, which was one of the final characters that he wanted to build out of the anime series Gundam Wing, which is one of our favourite animes now. Or was mine, but it's now ours. And that's been it, really. It's been quite busy on the bench over the last couple of weeks, which has been really lovely, especially spending time with the boys. That's what it's all about for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I need to decide what I'm going to do next after this Death Scythe's built.
I think I know what you're going to be working on.
Do you? Go on in. Which one of the two do you think it might be?
Well, I think it'd be something completely left field, and it will be what you've been spending your cash on, because I know you've got an engine for a certain Sea Fury.
I have. So it arrived yesterday in the post, and I got it directly from Skunkworks. So our friend Chris at Skunkworks, he very kindly ran an extra batch. For those that have probably been following him on his socials, he had to run an extra batch of sets, and it's amazing. So I've got a full set for the MK 132nd, the Sea Fury. It's just amazing. The detail on it is exceptional, and even on the spinner as well, you just get a completely different shape. It's far more, I think Will alluded to it during the episode that we spoke to the guys, you just can't get the shape correctly when you're doing moulded, but the 3D printed version's amazing. So I've got that, and I've also got the Phoenix Publications book for the Sea Fury build as well. So I purchased that off our friend Dave Francis, and outside of that, I don't think I'd actually bought anything else. I wasn't expecting to buy those.
That you're going to admit to with your missus in earshot as she just brought you a mug of tea.
Yeah. Although they are just sat here next to the desk, and they're not very inconspicuous.
Right.
You know, so she...
Yes, it's not a small box, is it, for the Sea Fury?
No. Although she did look at the Hornet and went, oh, that's different. I haven't seen one of those in that scale. Bearing in mind, there's one just here in my cabinet, but it's only 72nd. But she's familiar with the Hornet because we're only about 20 minutes from the de Havilland Museum. We've been down there a few times.
At Salisbury Hall.
Yep, that's it. So we've been down there a few times. They haven't got a Hornet there, but they have loads of details on it. And I think the only remaining thing is the mould, the concrete mould.
Yes. Okay, well, for rare occurrence, I've got some news to report. I have, well, to start off with, production-wise on the bench, absolutely sweet FA, because I've spent the last few weeks editing 3 shows on the bounce, so 0 time to play with the plastic, unfortunately. But I have been putting my hand in my pocket and bought a few things. So the Centaurus engine for the DBMK Fury I've got the other accessory set as well, which includes the seat, and I can't even remember what other parts are actually in that set.
It's the engine cowlings.
Engine cowlings, that's it. Yep. So I've got those. I've got the Phoenix book as well on the Fury, which includes a pre-production build of the kit. So you can do it step by step as it goes along. But my main expense has been buying tickets for Scale Model Challenge in the Netherlands in October.
Lovely.
I am going, and I've also bought my return airfare this morning, so that is sorted. Just got a few minor bits and pieces to sort, but hopefully we can then persuade the guys from SMC to come on to the show, obviously prior to the event, and have a chat about it. And it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be out there for the show and what's going on, because I've never been, and I believe I may be joined by one certain Nevs as well.
Yeah, you've just reminded me to book my tickets, and the good thing is with the certain airline that we're flying with, I've got a nice gift voucher. I might be able to get the tickets pretty much at 0 cost.
For heaven's sake.
Which you should have waited, because it might have covered some of yours, or not, I don't know. But
probably not. I know what my luck's like. If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all.
But yeah, I think it'll be great. Obviously, I'm off as well, and if we get time either side. Probably it sounds like we might have more time before SMC rather than afterwards.
Yes.
I do want to have a quick drive through a little bit of that area as the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of history there to do with certain parachute landings in 1944. So it'll be interesting to, I think we'll probably have to hire a car.
I've already got one planned.
All right. I was going to say, how far is SMC from the airport?
That's not that far at all.
Right. Okay. Is it in Eindhoven or is it?
On the outskirts, on the south side from memory.
Oh, okay.
It's south of the airport, definitely, though.
Right. Okay. So, but for other people visiting, I'm sure it's public transport is doable.
Yeah, I believe so. But the hotel was fully booked. So I'm looking for accommodation in the area that's not ridiculously expensive. But we'll come up with that. But we'll make sure that we book it before this episode comes out. Otherwise, everyone listening will be booking up the accommodation as well.
Well, just don't tell them where. I mean, we could just hop the border into Belgium at this rate.
This is true. That's true. So that's what I've been spending the cash on. But before we go into our next feature, we've had a spot of mail come through from Darren from the Scale Model Hangar, which I shall read out. He begins, "Hey Benchmates, I've just finished listening to episode 27 and wanted to share my thoughts. Firstly, I do like the new structure of the show. It flows more naturally and makes for a better listening experience, so well done. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this show immensely, as I like long-form conversations, and you couldn't have picked two better guests with Spencer and Rob. Hearing their thoughts on the hobby, the reasons why we do the hobby, and their personal insights was to me a refreshing treat. Please do more of this." Well, we're going to try to, but obviously it doesn't work for every format of guests that we have, but we'll do our best, and we have got some other guests of a similar quality coming on very soon. More of that later on. Darren continues, "I also wanted to pick up on a point that Rob made. There are a growing number of cliques in the hobby, and they put people off getting involved. At its best, it's hubris. At its worst, it's gatekeeping. We need more people like Rob in the hobby to call it out, and I thank him for doing so." You realise how big Rob's head's going to get on the back of that comment, don't you? Keep up the good work, and I look forward to the next episode. Happy modelling, Darren. Well, thanks for your message, mate. It is appreciated. We're doing our best. It is a process of evolution as we're fine-tuning the show as we go on, but when you're under the belt, and I think we're getting reasonably adept at doing it, not perfect, otherwise you wouldn't have me sat here, but that's another story entirely. Okay, what are your thoughts, Shane, Naz?
I couldn't agree more. I think it was a really interesting conversation with Rob and Spencer, and I think it was, enlightening is the best word, I think, because people that you highly regard, both in their own rights, are exceptional modelers, pushing the boundaries, and it's just nice to hear how honest they were about how it can be. And I think this hobby should be as accessible as it can be, and there's obviously different barriers to that, whether it's feeling maybe intimidated by people, which I know Spencer's really keen to break those barriers down, or if it's just having the opportunity, like just having the confidence to know who to ask about what's needed, what do I need to get off the ground, and get started back into the hobby. And I don't know about Nevs, but my kids got me back into the hobby. I spent the first probably 2 years back in the hobby building for my kids, the planes hanging from the ceiling, trying to replicate and just spend time together. And then you obviously get a bit more confidence in what you're doing, and you might buy slightly more expensive tools, or you might try your hand at airbrushing if you've got the funds and drive to do so. And it does escalate. It does. And anyone that's been in the hobby for a while will know that. But yeah, it was really cool, to be honest with you. It was really cool to hear what they had to say. And I appreciate that the listeners got that message as well.
Yes, indeed. And obviously, at the point of us recording this, we're just under a week away from episode 28 dropping. So Dan will have heard our conversation with Jeff and Terry from the Scale Model podcast. So it's a very similar conversation format. Slightly different to what we normally did, but I think that he'll enjoy that one as well, and hopefully everyone else will. But please just drop a message on our socials and let us know what you think. Nev, anything to add?
I just agree with what Shane said. I'm glad that Darren really enjoyed the show. I think we have had similar interviewees on the pod who've said similar before.
Yes.
It's just that the people come at it at different angles. I mean, you've heard my 2 pence on it shouldn't be what you're modelling, it's why you're modelling it, and what the story is behind. I think that matters far more than, oh, I followed step by step of the 101 guide to weathering, whatever it is. But I just remember when Jeff Coughlin was on with us, and he took a very similar approach that no one should be there to critique a model that you make, that it is your representation of something. And if you want to complete a 70-second Spitfire in like a neon blue and red camouflage, so be it. And who are other people to say, oh, that wasn't like that, or that squadron didn't have that markings at that time? It doesn't matter. And I go back to the episode 20 with Jeff a lot for what he said. That struck home for me. But I think it's the way that people say things. Obviously, different listeners will get something from different interviews. So I definitely encourage people to go back and listen to some of those other similar interviews like episode 20 too. Because like I say, that for me sticks with me in the way that Jeff worded it. Now, the way that Spencer and Rob phrased things, it was a bit like preaching to the choir in that I'd heard that kind of conversation before. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's great that people like Darren are really enjoying it as well.
Yeah. And the bad news is Rob is going to be coming back on the show again in the future. We didn't put him off.
They won't be able to get a word in edgewise, will we?
Well, what I'm going to do next time is use the mute button on him.
On him?
Rob will be going for about 10 minutes before he realises no one's actually listening, but just busting your chops, Rob.
You reckon? But no, you're spot on, Nevs.
It was episode 17 with Jeff. Sorry, not episode 20. We've done that many now. But episode 17.
I think another one that was equally as enlightening was our conversation with Mig. It's almost like we've inadvertently started having a retrospective on the shows we've had previously, but a lot of the stuff that Mig said about the hobby and it being your representation of what you want to build. If you're building something historically accurate, then obviously you need to do your homework and make sure that it is historically accurate rather than it being something that is close but not 100% there. Colour scheme wise, etc., is down to colour modulation, what you're actually doing.
Yeah, for sure.
But you need to be somewhat close or closer to the representation of what you're trying to build. But if you want to build a Spitfire that's red, blue and green, it's your model. Do what you want with it. It's the same, and I'm going to stick my thumb out here and say to Shane, I should imagine it's very similar in the Gunpla world. You don't have to stick to a rigid regimented colour scheme because as it didn't actually exist, who's to say that the colours are actually wrong in the first place?
Exactly. And I think it goes back to what Nev said. It's all about the why. Why are we building? What we're doing it for? Does it really matter what colour it is? That is the key point of it all. The Gundams don't exist. So it's your vision and it's your creative journey. That's what this is all about. It's your creative journey. It's escaping from the one-to-one scale troubles, as Dan refers to it as well. And yeah, a bit philosophical, but it's the why is so important. What are you doing it for?
And because of that, I know what you're saying, Brownie, about if it's historical, make sure it's accurate. But you say having your homework, if you're going to deviate from the norm, if you're going to have a new take on things, have your info to back you up.
Yes.
So that, for instance, I'm building Sharnals. Do I want to do the turret facings in white because I think they were that colour? Then I should have the reading to back it up. But you're saying with people who want to do the flat earth in more of a deserty drab colour, just have the reading to back it up. Just say, well, actually, I saw this modulation, I'd seen these photos of how it faded in the sun, and that's why I did it. So there's no harm in deviating, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, with that, we will take a short break, listen to some of our wonderful sponsors, and come back with you very shortly.
Fishcop Models, elevating scale modeling to an art form. Experience highly detailed 3D printed upgrade parts that bring true authenticity to your builds. Creators of the acclaimed Rolls-Royce Merlin engine set for both the Kotari Spitfire and the Dambusters set for the Border Models Avro Lancaster. For bespoke design and printing, our service is as precise as it is personal, all at a reasonable price. Please take a look at our products on www.fishcopcompany.de. Shipping is available for all of our products worldwide.
Beyond the Box Art is brought to you by Ammo by Mig Jimenez, Fish Cob Model Company, Guideline Publications, Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, and the Scale Modelers Supply. Here comes the Stash Inflation Report, separating genuine must-haves from, well, it was on pre-order anyway.
Right then, Benchmates, strap in because the aircraft corner of the Stash Inflation Report is looking particularly dangerous this time around. The latest round of announced kits continues to pile pressure on already crowded stashes, with several manufacturers revealing a mix of modern jets, classic warbirds, maritime aircraft, and rotary wing subjects. This report rounds up the newly noted releases and highlights what appears to be heading to the shelves in the coming months. First up, Academy looks set to cover a broad spread of subjects and scales, from helicopters to frontline jets and heavy bombers. Current listings point to several new or upcoming items, with a number of releases appearing to be scheduled for mid-2026. From Academy we have a 1-35th McDonnell Douglas 500 Defender in Israeli configuration, 72nd Boeing F-18E Super Hornet Operation Epic Fury, 1-144 scale Dassault Mirage F1, and 1-144 scale Consolidated B-24 Liberator. Next, X-scale models have also added some interesting and less conventional subjects to the mix, including a planned 144 scale Lockheed EP-3E Ares 2 and a 144 scale Trident 2E. Together, they give a range of distinctively unusual character and should appeal to modelers looking for something outside the standard fighter and bomber lineup. Then we have Ryefield Model, preparing to enter the 1-40 aircraft market with the MiG-21 MF. Currently reported to due to be released in June. If that timing holds, it could become one of the more closely watched Cold War aircraft releases of the summer. Hong Kong Models is associated with the 1-48 B-25JS Straffer release, keeping the medium bomber category well presented for builders of Second World War subjects. That gives another substantial project to consider alongside the flood of smaller scale announcements. Now, fire molds appear to have been one of the busiest and most varied release dates to date. This roundup spanning Imperial Japanese Navy subjects, late war Luftwaffe fighters, Cold War German aircraft, and United States Air Force Phantoms and Eagles. Together taken, it is a notably broad range that should interest both propeller era and jet era builders. The list includes 48 scale Imperial Japanese Navy A6M2 Type 21 Mitsubishi built early model from the aircraft carrier Akage, 48 Imperial Japanese Navy A6M2 Type 21 Nakajima built Solomon Air Warfare. Then they continue with a 72nd scale Messerschmitt Bf109G2 Gunpla RAL, a Bf109 F4 Barkhorn, and then we come into the jet era with the 72nd German Air Force F104G, German Navy F104 Marineflieger, 72nd German Air Force F4F Molders, United States Air Force F4G Wowweasel Gulf War, F4G Wowweasel Sea Camouflage, and 72nd USAF F-16C Gulf War. Tailprop Models adds 2 more 72nd scale subjects to the growing list, covering both Luftwaffe and Imperial Japanese Navy territory. That combination gives us the report another pair of classic Second World War aircraft with appeal across different corners of the hobby. From clear prop, we have Messerschmitt Bf109E/T in 72nd scale and 72nd scale Aichi D3A2 Val. And finally, 4ART also joins the lineup with a 72nd scale SH-3H Sea King and a naval helicopter subject to the release slate that is otherwise heavy with fixed-wing aircraft. It gives rotary wing modelers something to keep an eye on and broadens the overall mix of the 2026 announcements. So overall, this latest batch of announcements reinforces the sense of that 2026 is shaping up to be an expensive year for aircraft modelers, with subjects ranging from compact 144 scale kits to larger 48 scale centerpieces. There is no shortage or temptation for anyone trying to keep the stash growth under control. And with that little wallet warning out of the way, I'll hand you over to Browner, who's joined by Luke from Revell to talk about the big news from this week with a new tooled 1-32nd release.
So those of you that have been looking at the socials for the last week or so will have noticed that our friends at Revell have been doing something a little sneaky and teasing something that's coming out. Now, we've taken this opportunity to grab our friend Luke Slaney-Hewitt, the aviation product manager from Revell, to give us a little bit of an update. So, hi Luke, welcome back to the show.
Hi Paul, good to be back.
Fantastic. And obviously, as it's our anniversary show, it's fitting that you're one of the guests on the episode because you were our first external guest we ever had on the show. So, perfect timing.
I feel quite honoured.
And you should be, but that's another story entirely. So, for those that have seen the socials and saw the announcement that came out on Tuesday, wow. For those that haven't seen the announcement of what's coming, would you like to impart the news?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So for those that haven't seen the video, where have you been? But we'll forgive you, and I'll announce that we're producing, or in the process of producing, a 1/32 scale family of first generation Harriers. So hopefully that's got you all jumping for joy. Obviously, those that saw the video have seen what we're trying to do, but we're a while away from having plastic. That will be Q3 2027. But the aim is to produce the most accurate Harrier kits ever out of any scale. Obviously being 32nd, you have to go to town in terms of detail, but what we're going to be doing is slightly different. We're going to be following along the whole process with interviews with myself, the designers, and all the other people involved in the process. So decal designers, box artists. We want to show you every facet of the project, and what better way to do it than alongside a Harrier. We considered trying to do it multiple different ways. We were going to do it with the 72nd 109 because it's a smaller project and it's obviously something new for us. So we didn't want to do it on such a big ticket item, but hey, let's do it. If you're going to do it, then go big, basically.
You can't get much bigger with a single engine aircraft than that. Wow. I must admit, I got very excited when I saw the release, and that's just a case of, yes. But, so, we're looking GR1, GR1A, GR3.
Yep, so first boxing will be at GR1, GR3, but we're trying to be as transparent as possible. Obviously, as a model kit company, we'll tool multiple versions and then release multiple boxings over the years. So first boxing is definitely GR1, GR3. We may do a US exclusive for the AVA for our US side of the company to sell, but in terms of mainstream purchases, AVA-A, AVA-S will come at a later date. Obviously, in terms of parts, they're very, very similar to a GR1, but the bang seats, for example, change after a certain date on the AVA-As and the AVA-Ss. Obviously, there's a lot of different decals as well, being from different countries.
Yes.
The Sea Harriers we will do, when I say Sea Harriers, we'll do the FRS-1. We won't do the FA-2 simply because it's a whole new fuselage because the extension plug that was done as part of the upgrade. So FRS-1, but that's, if we're honest, is the one everyone wants because of the Falklands. So at some point we'll do that.
True, but also you can do the 51, so you can do Indian as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then we're potentially looking at doing the two-seaters. We haven't decided on that yet, but it's a lot of work. Obviously, it's a whole new front section, nose, cockpit, and also differences at the rear and some detail differences. So it might be a bridge too far for us at the moment, but the instruction to the design team is to design with that in mind so that we can potentially revisit at a later date. But our work's cut out for us as it is with the single-seaters for now, so it's a long road to go.
Well, don't leave the AV-8A to the American market only, because I'm sure there's a lot of people over here that would love to get their hands on the US Marine Corps version of the kit as well.
Yes, exactly. We potentially might do two boxings. So unlike Meteor, we won't be doing the first edition. The first kit that comes out will be a standard item, say plastic, decals, instructions inside the box. Mm-hmm. But next year is 60 years of Harrier. It's like we plan these things. So there may be some sort of special edition, limited edition coming that will have maybe extra decals, so all the different nationalities, or maybe photo etched. Nothing's confirmed at the moment. As I say, we're very early days. We're just focusing on design at the moment, and then we'll confirm sort of boxings and pricings a bit later in the year.
Okay, so it just has a hover around for that one.
Very good.
Hopefully I'm the first to come up with that, and it will get really old very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the options you've got available are exciting to start with, but who in the PR department came up with the silhouette of the Tomcat then? to get everyone completely wide of the mark.
Well, you have to throw a red herring in every now and then. You've got to keep people on their toes, you see.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, when we were talking about how to do the teaser campaign, I was saying we need to do some sort of build up. Otherwise, you drop the video and no one's aware of it. So it's gone down very, very well. To peek behind the curtain, we're recording on the Wednesday before the announcement that's on the Tuesday. So tomorrow, the audience listening now will have seen it. There is a teaser coming out that is a picture, and we ask people to then guess, but it's a second clue essentially. And they've been going, well, how does a tomcat relate to this picture? And those people would be very, very confused because it doesn't relate at all. The amount of people trying to guess, it must be swing wing. So is it an aardvark? Is it a tomcat? Is it some Russian thing? No, it's an aircraft. That's what it's representing. If we put a Harrier silhouette, unfortunately, we give the game away too quickly.
Milliseconds, yeah.
So the picture that goes live tomorrow, or for those that are listening, they've seen it already, was the end of Dunsfold runway, just with the runway number in sight. And also, if you're a Top Gear fan, you can see, I think it's Hammerhead Corner is at the end of that runway. Obviously, the significance being that's where the Harrier first flew.
Mm-hmm.
I was considering a trip down to Kingston upon Thames, where obviously the factory was. There's only one original building left, really, and that is the sports club. And it's still a recreational centre today. And I was going to take a photo of that building, and I was talking to someone, and they said, I think you've gone too vague. I was like, maybe I have at this point, yeah.
Was this after the first or second pint?
Yeah. The mad thing is, no alcohol needed. We come up with these harebrained schemes sober. Oh, yeah. Well, it's a housing estate where Kingston upon Thames, where the factory was. And there is a plaque on one of the pillars. I think it was like the gates to the factory originally. That was too on the nose because it features a Harrier. So we felt Dunsfold, there's enough connection with other aircraft. Obviously, most people go Dunsfold, Top Gear, Harrier, and then you might also think of Hunter and Seahawk because there's a connection, and also B-25 from the war as well. So we wanted something where there was enough ambiguity, where a lot of people will say Harrier, and we're talking with this happening in the future, so people might be laughing at us now. Hopefully people were throwing in, well, it might be a B-25, it may be a Seahawk. So we just wanted to keep it open so that people tuned in to the announcement.
Fantastic. Or they could have actually chosen Hawk as well.
Yes, very true.
Even though you got one in the range, which is really good. Okay, so we've got that to look forward to. When will the monthly updates start?
So we're going to count it from the announcement. So we're going to try and do it about the middle of the month each month.
Okay.
But alongside that, there is a blog. So every time we do a video, we'll also do a written piece. The information will be mostly the same because the same work has occurred. But obviously in a written piece, you can go into more detail and you can read it at your own pace.
Yeah.
So if you're really interested in the subject, watch the video and then read the blog. If you hate hearing me or my colleagues, Chris and Horatio, the designers, read the blog. You don't have to read it in our voices.
Oh, we will, don't you worry. Okay, so that we got to look forward to. So what is currently on your workbench then?
On my workbench at the moment is a 1/72 109 that we received first test shots for this week. So I've been building that. The joy of not having to worry about painting and just throwing together some grey plastic to check how it all fits together. I'm glad to say it fits together quite well. Only a few comments to be made back to the tool shop, but as I say, first shots. So very happy with that. Only a few tweaks underneath the radiators or around the radiators on the underside of the wing. But yeah, we're very happy. That's going along quite nicely.
It looks really tidy, and the engine inclusion as well in 70-second scale. That looks really nice.
Yeah, we're going to do two boxings. So the engine's actually on a separate frame. Mm-hmm. So the $9.99, the pocket money kit, as we'll call it, that's what pocket money counts for now, will be a standard without an engine, single scheme. And then we'll hopefully do a version that's more for the enthusiast, that has engines, it has drop tanks, bombs, and obviously will come with probably two schemes, and that will obviously come at a bit of a price increase as a result, but we're talking a couple of euros, so nothing too substantial.
And when are we expecting that to hit the shops for the first boxing?
It's a good question, because my schedule still says May, and the fact that I'm only doing first shots now tells me that's not happening. So probably Q3, end of Q3. So yes, September is the hope.
Okay. And how are we looking then for the Hunter release? Is that still on schedule?
Hunter is still on schedule. I believe the tools are on the water, if not already in Europe. I need to check purchasing. But yes, all on schedule for an August release, which
Perfect.
I'm happy about. Yeah, decals are ordered. Instruction manual is not ordered. That's one of my big problems. But once I'm back from a holiday to Turkey, I will be getting on the case for those.
I don't think you needed your teeth doing.
No, it's the hairline that's going.
I wasn't going to go down that road, but fair enough. Okie dokie. Is there anything else that you'd like to update our audience with before you disappear on your hollybobs?
Nothing much from me. Just to say, with the announcement video, we're looking for as much engagement from the fans as possible. So if you have an idea of how we can present the Harrier in the best way possible, how we can do this video series, cool features, or in terms of the model kit, something to look out for, things that we might miss, please let us know. Comment wherever you can. I check all the other video feeds, not just Revell and podcast comments, of course. So let us know. And if you want to get directly through to me, I'm not stupid enough to put my email directly on the web. So search for the Revell blog that will be live as we're talking. And at the bottom, there's an email address. Email me with the subject Project Harrier, and it will get through eventually to myself, and I may reply to you. But I will read them all.
Okay, Luke, thank you very much for your time as ever, and we'll catch up again later in the year, and have a fantastic holiday.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers for now.
Dan here with the AFV releases, but first off, it was great to hear Luke back on the show giving us that deep dive into plans for the Harrier. This sounds really exciting, and judging by the reaction online already, there are going to be plenty of benchmates clearing space on that bench, especially our chairman Wong, and probably buying aftermarket before the kit's even landed. Now then, speaking of reducing available shelf space, over at Italeri Dock, they've announced a brand new starter set easy paint range aimed at bringing more people into the hobby. The new line launches from the first week of June and is clearly designed as an accessible entry point for newer modelers with simplified builds and included painting solutions. Honestly, anything helping fresh blood discover the hobby is a good thing in our book, even if most of us listening immediately looked at them and went, they'd make a lovely weekend build. They're all in 156, and you have the choice of a Sherman, Tiger, Panther or Cromwell tank, and they come with AK paint pens in the box for a quick build and paint job if that's what you want to do with them. You could of course add more weathering, etc. Meanwhile, Mini Art continue their relentless campaign to ensure none of us ever financially recover. First up is kit 53004, which is the US repair crew with equipment in 1/35 scale. This set includes 3 highly detailed figures alongside compressors, toolboxes, crates and workshop accessories. Basically everything needed to create an eye-catching wartime maintenance scene. If you enjoy those behind the front line moments in a diorama, this one will help add character and detail. And staying with Mini Art, they've also announced the Australian Stuart Mark 1 kit, number 35437 in 1/35 scale. This represents the locally operated Stuart light tank used by Australian forces during the Second World War, particularly in Pacific and jungle operations where mobility was absolutely critical. The kit includes photo etch parts, 3 decal options and detailed suspension and exterior components. It's one of those subjects that feels just different enough from the usual European theatre armour to really stand out in a collection, especially if you fancy something covered in mud, foliage and absolute tropical misery. And finally, for the armour fans, over at Special Hobby, there's a new SD KFZ 250/1 ALSF A, arriving in 1/72 scale. Kit number 100SA72019. The 250 series became one of Germany's most recognisable light half-tracks during the war, used for reconnaissance, troop transport and command duties across multiple theatres. The early Alt version had that more regular angular hull shape, which many modellers actually prefer visually, and I include myself in that. In 1/72, this could make for a really nice compact project without sacrificing too much detail. So yes, another week, another collection of definitely don't need that. Immediately followed by, well, maybe just one. And with that, I'm handing over to Nevs for the nautical news.
Thanks, Dan. Now, I've been milling around the dock gates yet again, this time at Yokosuka, Kure and Sasebo. Because that's right, it's time to head out into the Pacific. And there's a definite Imperial Japanese Navy flavour washing over the nautical side of the Stash Inflation Report this month. First up, Bunker Studio are bringing a tidal wave of high-detail upgrade sets for fans of the IGN. And there are so many releases arriving that we can really only skim the surface here. In 1:700 scale, we're seeing beautifully detailed replacement forward bridge sections for the Takao cruisers, Otago, Maya, and Chikai. Otago and Maya are represented in their 1944 configurations, whilst Chikai also receives a version depicting the ship as she appeared during the Battle of Savo Island in 1942. The famous battleship Congo is also getting plenty of attention, with upgraded bridge structures, rear bridge sections, smokestacks, and main gun turrets all on the way. And she won't be alone either, because Bunker Studio are also producing turret upgrades for her sister ships Hiei, Haruna, and Kirishima. These are very much aimed at the serious super detail crowd, and from experience, these sets tend to vanish from retailers extremely quickly. So if you've got a half-finished IJN project sitting in the stash, waiting for some love, this might be the moment to move fast before they disappear over the horizon. Staying with the Imperial Japanese Navy, Yamashita Hobby are returning to their excellent Matsu-class destroyer tooling with a new release of the IJN Momo in 1:700 scale. If you've never built a Yamashita Hobby kit before, they've developed a really strong reputation for finely detailed injection molded waterline kits, and this one looks set to continue that trend. The real Matsu-class destroyers were intriguing ships historically. Their design was a marriage between wartime desperation and forward-thinking ingenuity, as Japan hurried to replace mounting escort losses. They carried lighter armament than the fleet destroyers that came before them, but they were quicker and cheaper to build, helping to fill the growing gaps in convoy protection and fleet screening duties late in the war. The engineering on these kits is also quite clever. The hull halves fit around a central spine, allowing the main deck to slot in cleanly as a single piece and helping to avoid the fit problems that can sometimes plague waterline kits with raised forecastles. Previous releases in the series have sold out very quickly, so late war IGN fans will probably want to keep a close eye on this one. And finally, two absolute heavyweights returning to shelves. Fujimi are re-releasing their hugely respected Next series kits of Yamato and Musashi in 1:700 scale. These are full hull injection molded kits, with Musashi represented prior to her loss during Operation Shoichi Go in 1944, while Yamato appears as she did at the end of her life in 1945, fit just before Operation Tengo. These boxings are really aimed at giving builders almost everything they need in one package. Alongside the kits themselves, you'll get large display stands, including a particularly impressive one for Musashi with space for a nameplate, plus full photo etch detail sets and wooden deck stickers straight from the box. The only real thing missing might be brass barrels if you want to go absolutely all in on detail. Release is expected in June, and given how popular IJN subjects remain, these probably won't stay on shelves for very long. So if gigantic Japanese battleships are your thing, now may be the time to clear some display space before these Leviathans steam back into port. Right then, from battleships and destroyers to giant robots and futuristic mecha, let's hand things over to Shane for the Gundam and sci-fi news.
Thanks, Nevs. Right then, Benchmates. If giant robots, powered armor, alternate universes, and gloriously over-engineered sci-fi are your thing, your wallet may want to quietly leave the room now. First up this month comes something packed with nostalgia from the golden age of Japanese anime. Good Smile Company, Modoroid, Gamburger from the Energy Bomb Gamburger arrives as a fully transformable and combinable kit, featuring the 3 individual mecha, Go Tiger, Mac Eagle, King Elephant, all merging together into the mighty Gamburger robot itself. Standing at 160mm tall, this non-scale kit continues Good Smile's increasingly impressive Modoroid line, bringing classic anime subjects to a much wider audience without requiring the sort of engineering degree that some of the older mecha kits demanded. This really clever kit, with 7 colours, pre-separated runners, and pre-painted parts included, builders can achieve a very respectable finish straight out the box without ever opening a paint bottle. Release is expected later this year, pricing somewhere likely between £45 and £65 depending on your importer and retailer. And honestly, this is one of those kits that absolutely screams Saturday morning anime energy. Next up, this one will have the Maschinen Krieger fans very excited indeed. Wave's 120th Panzer D Dora is finally arriving as a fully injection plastic release. Now, for MAK fans, this is a pretty significant moment because until now, this particular variant has remained through 1, 2, 3. Now, for MAK fans, this is a pretty significant moment because until now, this particular variant has mainly existed for expensive garage kits or heavily modified Frankenbuild customs that are usually assembled from multiple donor kits. Maschinen Krieger has always occupied this brilliant middle ground between gritty military realism and surreal science fiction. This Dora release means that builders can finally get hold of the subject in a much more accessible format, and because it's Wave, the expectations for mold quality and engineering are understandably high. Expected release window is around September to October, with pricing currently hovering at around £55. And if you're someone who enjoys weathering, oils, pigments, and making things look beautifully battered, MAK remains one of the best playgrounds in the hobby. Now, sticking with the mecha world, but shifting into the Gundam-inspired territory, the intriguingly named Super Soldier Plan, 1/100 scale Haluja model kit takes very heavy inspiration from the GN003 Gundam Kyrios from the Mobile Suit Gundam 00. What's interesting here is that this aims to replicate the appearance of a premium resin garage kit while remaining entirely plastic in construction. That means no pre-built die-cast frame, no metal internals, and none of the usual hybrid shortcuts many third-party manufacturers are currently using. Instead, this is a fully plastic build intended to deliver super detailed, high-end aesthetic, while remaining relatively affordable, with current pricing expected at around £25. Release is also expected around September to October. Honestly, for the price, this could end up being one of those sleeper kits people suddenly realise is far better than expected. Finally this month, and Transformer fans, this one's for you. Flame Toys model Shattered Glass Optimus Prime version 2008 takes a very different approach compared with some of the Flame Toys' earlier ultra-angular anime-inspired releases. Instead, this version recreates a classic, blockier appearance of the original BotCon 2008 Shattered Glass Optimus Prime design, complete with that wonderfully bizarre alternative universe concept where the Autobots are evil and the Decepticons are heroic. Standing at around 6 inches tall, this is a non-transformable display-focused model kit, prioritising posability and visual accuracy over engineering gimmicks. Expected pricing is around £55, and although the release timing is still currently to be confirmed. So, whether your bench currently contains giant combining robots, powered armour, Gundam-inspired super machines, or evil alternate universe Optimus Prime variants, there is no shortage of temptation arriving over the next few months. And that wraps up this edition of the Stash Inflation Report. proving once again that no matter what your genre you build, the stash is expanding faster than the available shelf space. And a quick special thanks to Luke for jumping on and giving us the background on the Harrier. We just know that Wongy's going to have 10 on back order already. Coming up, we head into the latest edition of IPMS Dispatches. This time, we shine the spotlight on IPMS Romsey, a thriving club celebrating its 25th year, and the ever-growing Romsey Show, which has expanded from a small village hall into a major regional modelling gathering that attracts builders from all across the south of England. We'll also be hearing a few words from Rich Middleton as he steps into the role of President of the IPMS UK and shares a few thoughts on the future of the society.
Do you want cutting-edge detail for your kits? Then take a look at Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, run by USAF veteran Mike Reeves. With real-world aircraft experience as a crew chief, Mike knows exactly where accuracy counts. And today, he's bringing that knowledge to life with precision 3D printed parts. From seamless intakes and nozzles to dropped flaps, pods, pylons, and cockpit upgrades, Phase Hanger's prints capture the crisp edges and fine detail that limitations in injection molding just can't reproduce. From 1/72nd to 1/32nd scale, you'll find add-ons from Cold War classics to the latest frontline jets with frequent new additions to the product range. Every piece is designed by modelers, for modelers, and faithfully reproduced on state-of-the-art printers and shipped worldwide, and are ready to drop straight into your next build. With additions to the product line landing all the time, there's always something fresh to elevate your next build. Explore the full range at phasehangerresin.com and follow Phase Hanger on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates and inspiration. Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, authentic detail designed with a veteran's eye and available to modelers everywhere. Phase Hanger is a proud sponsor of the Beyond the Box Art podcast.
Head to beyondtheboxart.com for host bios, guest features, and direct links to all our social channels. Your central hub for staying connected. Welcome to IPMS Dispatches, bringing you society news, upcoming events, and a friendly spotlight on branches and special interest groups across the IPMS community.
Right then, for this edition of IPMS Dispatches, we're heading down to the south coast of the UK to catch up with a team from IPMS Romsey, a club celebrating an incredible 25 years in the hobby community. Joining me for this one, our chair, Paul Adams, vice chair, Tony Adams, not related, and Simon James. So let's start off, and you can choose between you who's going to speak. But for the listeners who may not know the club, how did IPMS Romsey first begin back in 2001?
I'm the longest serving member of the club, yes. So hi, I'm Paul. The club was founded in, we think, late 2001. There's a little bit of a grey area, but we think late 2001. And the club really got established properly in 2002. But we initially met at the Royal British Legion in Romsey. And I have vague memories of going to one of those meetings. And shortly after, we moved to the St John's Hall in Romsey. And then the membership grew to about 10 people. And it really went from there. Les Cooper did a fantastic job of setting the club up, and with the help of Pat Camp, the club slowly grew very steadily, but we went to 10, 12 members. We started doing a lot of shows, local shows, and the membership grew from there. And we went to a local show in Romsey that was a kind of general model show, radio controlled boats, radio controlled cars, that type of thing, and some static modelling. And we picked up quite a few members from there, including Tony, who gave his wife a day out at a model show.
That was nice of him.
I think one of the big benefits I had with joining the club originally was that I build automotive. Generally, I have a play with aircraft and few other things. But generally I'm doing automotive, and there's not a lot of automotive modelers around. There certainly wasn't 25 years ago. Of course, I go along to this club, and Les is really welcoming, and we have the 10 or 12 members, everybody's interested in what you're building, as well as the smattering of aircraft and armour and other things. There's my car model, and I went out along with a friend of mine who's also a very good car modeler, so there was 2 of us in the club, and we felt very comfortable there. And yeah, I guess that's one of the things that we've tried to keep that ethos going, that we're very welcoming to anybody. It doesn't matter what you build. If you're interested in modelling, that's great. As long as you're building something and you get enjoyment from it, it's great. So we do try and encourage that in the club. So with meeting Tony at a model show, Tony and I took over running the club in 2008 when Pat Camp left to go and work in France. So that was really quite a big springboard for the club, because we had between us a vision of what we could achieve in the club. The first thing we did was set up a website, and shortly after we created the club magazine. So we had a club newsletter that was 2 or 3 pages and featured some events going on in the club. And Tony kind of took that and ran with it and created the Romsey Modeler magazine, which eventually grew into almost a 40-page monthly magazine. Got a little bit out of hand, to be fair. With popping that up on the website, we were getting 400 or 500 downloads a month, and we would take copies of the magazine and have it on the club stand, and people would come and take them at model shows. It grew too big eventually, and we had to call a halt to it. But that 10-year period also enabled a natural growth in the club, because we were just getting the exposure online. And a lot of club members from other clubs would say, yeah, read your magazine. Yeah, when's the next one out? Great articles. We were doing all that. So Tony and I kind of transformed the club a bit from around that time. And then 2013, we went to twice monthly meetings. Such was the demand. We had a little test, experimented, and we've been doing that since. So we meet first and third Wednesdays, and with about 25 on a main meeting. That's our third Wednesday meeting. And the first meeting a month, 15 to 20 people. That was great for the club, great for the social side of the club as well. And it gets modelers away from their benches, gets them in front of other modelers with their work, talking about their work, their problems, what they've achieved, what they want to achieve. It's a great secondary platform, and that has worked out really well. I'm just trying to check when. So in 2011, the other big event, I guess, was that we joined the IPMS. And in doing so, of course, that enabled us to start to go to Telford. And from then, we also then started to recruit steadily. And we weren't active, I wouldn't say we were actively recruiting, but the fact that we were part of the IPMS and going to Telford and a little bit more higher profile for the club just meant people were more aware of us. And the membership grew steadily from there. And that's really one of the springboards for, I think, the success of the club in the last 15 years, certainly. I guess the other big thing we did then was 2016, we had our first model show. We held that at our clubhouse, small model show, 10 clubs. A few traders came and supported us. All the clubs that came along said it's like a big club meeting. It's great. Everybody enjoyed it. We didn't lose any money on the first year. Right, let's do it again, 2017, 2018. So we had 3 shows at our club. And then 2019, we moved into the centre of Romsey, which is where we still are now. And from there, really, our membership has grown very steadily. Some things we've dropped off, like the magazine, we don't do so much anymore, but we now have a good Facebook group page, and our website is still running, and we're now doing regular updates with that. So that's still giving us some exposure. And 10 shows a year we do around the circuit, not including our own. So we're a busy club, lots going on. And I guess Tony might want to talk about what we do on club nights. But we've had a very solid base, and I think we've pushed the club along very well. We have a very good identity as well with our branding we did 10 years ago. So we've made the most, I think, of what we got, and it's been very successful. Yeah.
Okay. Whereabouts in Romsey do you meet now then?
We actually meet in Anfield, which is the little village just outside of Romsey, at the Anfield Village Hall. So as Paul said, we meet twice a month, first Wednesday and third Wednesday,
At what time?
from 8 o'clock till 10.
Okay.
I say the club, as Paul was alluding to, we do quite a lot on club nights. Obviously, like most clubs, we run competitions, so we have a number of competitions through the year, culminated in our annual competition in November with the award ceremony in December. We obviously do demos. We have regular club members will try and put together something. So we might do some airbrushing courses, some basic skill courses, dioramas, various different things on a club night. We have previously done group builds, so we're actually planning to do group build this year, which will be
Spitfire. Yeah.
which I think we decided will be 72nd scale Spitfires. So the club's in a reasonable financial position, so we can afford to buy kits for the members to take home and work on themselves. So we do that. We also do events. We go to museums, obviously shows. We did organise a trip to the Normandy a few years back and to the Somme and to the beach. So a few of us went along there. So in general, we get to do quite a lot.
Yeah. I'm just thinking your branch is probably the closest to the birthplace of the Spitfire.
It is indeed.
Well, my hometown is Eastleigh. Yeah.
I know it very well. But obviously IB are just releasing the 172nd K5054.
Yep.
So you've actually going to have the prototype available for the first time. I can't think of anyone else who's actually done 5054 in any scale.
Yeah, that's interesting because we've looked at selecting relatively straightforward kits to build because we want people to take them home, enjoy building them and come back with a finished model. So yeah, hence the 72nd scale. I think we've got about 20 people involved, which was, I think, about the same we had for the Tempest build a few years ago, which was very successful. And it was interesting because people weren't building them out of the box. People were having various interpretations of what they wanted to do with the model. And that made we have a section in our annual competition for that build off. And none were the same. Every model was different. There was a different interpretation. Somewhere on the ground, some were in the air, some had make-believe paint schemes and all sorts of things going on. It was fantastic. People's interpretation of what to do with the model was fantastic, and we're hoping to have the same thing this year.
So is that going to be your theme for Talford?
We are going to have a bit of a Spitfire theme on the table, given that it's quite close to our local history, and certainly mine and a few others. We have a few other members live in Eastleigh, so it will be part of the table. It won't be the whole table, but yeah, certainly part of it.
So you're keeping your cards close to your chest what the main theme is, that?
We generally don't theme the table too much, but we'll have a small theme on the table.
Okay, so how does Simon fit into the organisation then?
Yeah, I was listening to the interesting history of the club. So yeah, I very much so come from this conversation, I guess, as the new member. So yeah, I started coming in January 2025 after kind of meeting some of the guys at some local shows, I think Salisbury, Tangmere, kind of saying hello. And I went from that bedroom modeler, got back into it in COVID, real sort of typical modeler of that sort of ilk, and wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go to a club. There was probably some apprehension about my level and displaying that to everybody else. But, my wife kind of pushed me to go. I think she was set up of being dragged around the shows and needed me to go and find my own people, which has worked out really well. So yeah, so it's great. And I think Tony really just made the point that the club's got some amazing modelers across all spectrums from different sort of areas, like whether it's automobiles and armor and aircraft and sci-fi, and modelers at so many different levels. And in the 18 months I've been coming along, I've made some fantastic friends, but more so I've also really, really improved my modeling skills. It's not so much a club, it's like a community, because my interaction isn't 2 Wednesdays a month. It's very much so, there's a few of us who Paul loves because we'll wear Hawaiian shirts at a show and we get some scowls. But it sounds really daft, but a bit of a band of brothers type thing, because all great friendships have got a common interest. And that's very much so in modelers. And I think it's a sort of hobby which is quite unique, and there's some fantastic characters that get brought to unique subjects. And because of that, it's just it's a great place to go for 2 nights a month. And I think anyone that's sort of local to the area, because we have guys come from quite far. I would say people travel a good 20, 30 miles to come to the club. So if you're in the local area and listening, I'm doing a big plug here, come and join us. Come and say hello. And yeah, it's just the most welcoming and encouraging atmosphere. And from being really apprehensive off the bat, within 2 meetings, it felt like I'd been there for years. So yeah, it was brilliant.
So what's your catchment area then? Obviously, your Southampton area is on the doorstep. You've got Portsmouth, you've got Bournemouth, Salisbury,
Winchester.
We also have, it's worth mentioning that there is a number of modelers that come from the IPMS Southampton club and have supported the club since the early days, since I started going. There's one particular member who's also called Simon. He's been at the club as long as I have. We have a few people from Portsmouth Way and around. So yeah, we have a lady come stand and does our teas and coffees for us from Salisbury.
Actually, that's a good point, because one thing that I've been really pleased about in the last few years is we had quite a few young members, sometimes coming with their mums.
Yeah.
It makes life a bit more interesting for us rather than sitting around with a load of old gits like men. We've got probably 4 or 5 young people now come to the meetings quite regularly.
Brilliant.
Brilliant for the future of the hobby, since most of us are getting on somewhat.
Speak for yourself.
I kind of feel like I'm in that young group, Tony, still.
Yeah, we think you are too, Simon. Yeah, despite the grey hair. Yeah. Yeah, we've been quite fortunate that, there's a few club members that bring a few of their children along who are modelling. And one of them's gone off to the RAF at the moment, but he was developing very well. And we have a new chap who's, I think, been with us about 6 months, comes on with his grandfather. And he's 15 and tremendously enthusiastic about the hobby.
Brilliant.
Really interested in properly learning, and he knows his subject he's building, does a lot of research, and I'm hoping that people like him are going to be the future of the club, because Tony and I are getting on a little bit now, and we're going to need some youngsters like Simon there to help take the club forward a bit further. But it's healthy. Our demographic, we're probably 60% of us are over 50. But there are some, what I now call youngsters in the club, the guys that are below that. And that's good. It's very good. Very good. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so you brushed on your annual show earlier. When is the next event and where?
Okay, who can remember the date?
It wasn't a trick question.
No. So our 26th event is going to take place on Sunday, the 19th of July. And we are at our now customary venue of the Crossfield Hall in Romsey, the centre of Romsey. The show is open at 10, runs till 4. We have, I think now 19 clubs attending, and I think we have 11 traders attending. So this is not a huge venue, so we are busy. So we have our normal tombola, which the tombola is where we generate the money for our 2 charities we support.
Which are
Models for Heroes and a charity that Tony knows a lot about, which is Simon Says.
Yeah, they're involved in supporting children that have suffered some sort of bereavement. A very worthwhile charity. So we've been supporting both charities for the last 8 or 9 years, I think.
fantastic.
We have all-day refreshments. Around the building is free parking on a Sunday, which is very good. Building is air-conditioned, which is very useful for the summer.
This year we're going to actually be part of the Romsey Festival, which is a sort of arts festival in the town. And I guess it gives us some advantage in terms of raising the awareness of modelling to a lot of people that wouldn't have necessarily thought about it.
That sounds really good. And what's the admission price?
£5 flat fee.
Children free.
Yeah, under 16, isn't it? Yeah.
And the all-important question, what is the postcode for the venue?
That's a very good one, and I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, Sierra Oscar 518 Golf Lima, Crossfield Hall.
On that, I will say thank you very much, and we will see you at Telford, if not before. And good luck with your show.
Thanks for having us on. Thank you.
Thanks to the IPMS Romsey for their latest branch information. We've now moved locations to the outdoors at the Coventry Air Museum, and I'm stood with Mr. Paul Regan, President at the start of the AGM for IPMS, and now in, I'll say, retirement for the want of a better term. But Paul, congratulations, 25 years as President, brilliant job. What's been the highlights?
Thanks, Paul. It seems a lot longer at times, but such is the way of these things. Yeah. The highlight of the job has been quite simply meeting the people that we do. Without being a member of the society, sitting on the board, and then becoming president, I don't think I would have met hundreds of people that I now know and think of as friends. I can go to any model show in the country pretty much and find somebody that I know. I can go abroad to a model show or even to a museum, aircraft museum or something, and tend to bump into members and people who've heard of me. Not because I'm trying to be some famous guy, it's just the people are what this is all about. We've just sat through the AGM and talked about some of the ways we're going to take things forward and the way things are going to move. And inclusivity was a word that was mentioned several times. And I think that's modelling, and I've said this to yourselves and on the pod before, it's about bringing people out of their shells of modellers so that we integrate, we meet with people, we interface with other people, be it a club, a show, or wherever. And that, for me, is the core of what this is all about. You know, I've seen some awesome models. Don't remember them so well, but I have seen some. Been collared several times to do things that maybe I wouldn't normally out of my comfort zone, like standing at Coventry Air Museum, having to talk about this sort of thing. Being asked to make the final decision on what was the best of show at an event because the judges were completely tied. And they said I seemed like a responsible individual who could decide.
They don't know you, do they?
No, they hadn't. No, they did actually. That's why they did it. But that's what this is about. And although I'm no longer president of the society as of this afternoon, the board have co-opted me to stay on the board as an advisory member in part, and also to deal with some of the project work that's going on, and just some tasks that I can do that don't need to then be run by someone else. Because IPMS UK is a medium-sized enterprise, turns over between £250,000 and £350,000, and it's run by 12 volunteers. And without some help, it doesn't get done. So I can now become one of those who helps a bit more, instead of being the one sitting in the middle trying to manage others into doing it. And quite simply also, if I went cold turkey, I think I'd probably kind of lose it myself. So I think it's important to wind down a bit, and in exactly the same way that John Tapsell has just rejoined the board after taking a 2-year gap, might come back if there's a post there, so we'll see. But no, it's been a great period to be president. We've seen some quite successful years.
And a lot of innovation, as it stands already.
Thank you, yeah. I genuinely think that's true. One of the things I can now do, which I held off doing, is follow one of my interests in modelling, which is I'm going to be speaking a part and looking to start a SIG based around the Warhammer side of the world.
Brilliant.
Because it is an interest I have. It is something I do personally, and I think it's something different that we can get some people together there who aren't in the hardcore building Spitfires and Mustangs and Phantoms.
Absolutely.
And German tanks and race cars.
Yeah.
And I think we may be surprised, either way, but I think we may find that there are a lot more people interested in that than we think.
Oh, totally. And also, we are looking at doing an episode of the show in the near future on Warhammer anyway. This episode is primarily Gundam, and actually looking at trying to get the wider IPMS and modelling community in general to look at what is potentially going to be the future of scale modelling and the scale modelers. So it's all about inclusion, as you say.
I think you're absolutely right. If we don't adapt, we die.
Exactly.
I mentioned in the meeting from the floor, 30, 40 years ago, we talked about vac form kits a lot.
Yeah.
You don't even see them now. No. And the hobby evolves and moves and changes, both in terms of what we do and how we do it.
Yes.
Materials, tools, paints, finishes. scheme, preferences, I guess.
Yes.
Heavily weathered, not weathered, pristine, not, these things come and go, and subjects are just the same thing. And the Gundams are definitely coming big and thick. I think the Warhammer stuff can sit alongside that
easily,
sensibly, and can work well. And we will see. But if we don't evolve as a society, we will die. And in part, if the society were to die, I think that would be bad for the hobby.
Very much so. Very much so.
And so, we are integral to that. And I think the fact that we have 5,000 members active in the UK at any one time, at the moment, that is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s, the initial membership was, the initial was 0, of course, but in the early years, we were talking double figures, and it gradually limped over 100, and to the millennium where we had about 1,500. So we're clearly providing a need.
Mm-hmm.
The model is one.
Exactly.
And for good or ill, that is what we do. And that is what we will do for the coming millennium or whatever.
Yeah.
However long it may take. And Rich is going to be the guy who's going to help us go into that world.
Agreed.
And he's going to help. But it's going to be evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
Nothing we're going to do tomorrow is going to be any different than it was today.
No.
And, and I will sit there and hopefully think, what a bloody good idea. Why didn't we do that 10 years ago? Equally, I may say, we did do that 10 years ago. Let's not do it again because it didn't work then.
Yes, quite.
There will be changes. This isn't my society. It never was. And, my role has always been to try and steer people in directions.
Yes.
And try and pull together a team who can actually make this thing work. And that's probably the hardest and most invisible part of it that you don't see. But such is life.
Yeah, totally. Well, from everyone on the show, Paul, thank you very much for everything you've done for IPMS. And we will get you back on in the near future, and we'll be starting to talk about Warhammer.
Thank you, Paul. And thanks to the pod. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you. As Paul leaves us and goes off into the sunset, I'm joined by Rich Middleton, the new president of IPMS UK. Welcome, Rich. Obviously, second time on the show, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So, now you've actually swept out the old with the broom, metaphorically. Paul's obviously still hanging around, as he just said, but any ideas on direction or plans for the future? I know it's only 5 minutes since you've actually signed on the dotted line, but...
Yes, plenty of plans, lots of ideas. They will be on how we take the society forward, on how we can spread the word, how we can become more familiar outside of our little community, how we can work with other genre with similar skill sets. Very much a thing I want to focus on and become part of a coherent community rather than a hidden one.
Yes.
So that's where I want to work. I want to try and encourage our committee to broaden their support base because there's an awful lot of work to do as individuals. Yep. So we'll be looking for help in every sector that we have. And that's why we have 12 positions on the committee. Mm-hmm. Each one of them needs support to get their roles more effective and efficient. We do get criticism for lack of communication. Well, a lot of these guys have got a day job. So if we can spread the load a little bit, that will help in that process. So that's another area we need to develop. We have recently started a review of the strategy going forward. Mm-hmm. So that will mean some of the things I've just mentioned, but other areas as well where we can make strides forward. It won't all happen overnight. It will take time for some of them. But yeah, that's trying to get us into the 21st century. Yeah. And thinking ahead rather than covering our backsides, basically. Yes. So it's where can we move forward to? Where's the vision? And that will come out of the ongoing strategy conversations that we have.
Okay. IPMS USA has just done a review of their rules and regulations for inclusivity with LGBT, etc. Is there anything in the plans or pipeline for the UK to actually look at the rules for the organisation?
Nothing in the plan. Principally because we are inclusive by default. Mm-hmm. If you look in any of the rules and regulations that we have at the moment, it makes it very clear that anybody and everybody is welcome. We don't set barriers. We don't set minimum standards. We are here purely for the art and love of building models.
Yes. Yes.
If we start introducing specifics for any given sector, then you've started to introduce barriers that are not there.
Fair enough.
There are no barriers. There is absolutely full inclusion anyway. And personally, the way I see it, we shouldn't need to make allowances for anybody. Everybody is welcome.
Okay, Rich. Thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.
And we will see you at Telford, but we will be speaking to you for the first episode in July. I think it's episode 32. And we'll start the ball rolling for Telford 2026.
Look forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Are you looking for top quality paints for your next project? Then look no further than the Scale Modeler Supply. Hi, I'm Scott, and as a passionate modeler myself, I've spent years creating the SMS product range, designing them specifically with a scale modeler in mind. We've worked extensively to develop our acrylic lacquer paint range to not only be airbrush ready straight out of the bottle, but also to be very easy to use so that anyone of any skill level can create professional results with minimal effort. Just give the bottle a good shake, pour into your airbrush and spray at 15 psi. So dive into your next project with confidence, knowing that you're backed by one of the finest hobby paints on the market. Head over to our website scalemodeler.com.au to check out our full range and to find your closest retailer.
It's time for the Guideline Publications updates for what's coming up in the June editions of the magazines with John Tabiner.
Hello Benchmates, John Tabiner here from Guideline Publications with a quick update on what you can expect to find in the June editions of our magazines. We'll start this month with Scale Aircraft Modelling, Volume 48, Issue 04, I think that is. That hits the shop this Thursday, the 21st of May, just as this podcast drops. Of course, you can take out a subscription to any of our magazines at guidelinepublications.com and have them delivered through your letterbox a day before. So, Scale Aircraft Modelling's cover this month is John Bryan's beautiful build of Halberd's 1/48 scale Martin AM-1 Mauler. This is a United States Navy 1950s piston-engined attack aircraft, and it's huge. It makes the Sky Raider look positively tiny. It's a massive piece of resin. Mine's just arrived, and I have to say it's beautifully cast, but John does note a few problems with the build. Well worth a read. We drop down to 1/72nd scale next. Marco Rondinelli brings us Sword's F-84F Thunderstreak, finished as one might expect in Italian Air Force markings. It's a lovely little model, finished really well, and the Italian markings really bring it to life. Very, very nice, and there's a lovely little handmade base for that kit. Manu Gill returns next with 1/72nd scale Messerschmitt Bf 109B Action, finishing the kit as a Spanish nationalist machine. As ever, Manu's painting and finishing is superb, and he provides step-by-step instructions on how he achieved it. We stick with Gentleman's Scale with a Tony Grand, British post-war experimental aircraft. 3 Fairy Deltas here. Dora Wing's relatively recent 1/72nd scale model is first. Then there's a 3D printed Fairy Delta 3 Small by Machina Models. And the final part of the triumvirate is a scratch-built Fairy Delta 3 Big, which Tony built from plans a few years ago. I think he found in one of the Secret Projects books. We jump up a couple of scales next. Mario Sorel is here with Kitty Hawk's 1/32nd scale Northrop Tiger II, the F5F 2-seater version. This is finished in Brazilian Air Force markings with a very attractive green and grey wraparound scheme. And to give you more information about the Brazilian use of Tigers, Mario also has a walk-around featuring the F5EM machine. This is one of the single-seater upgraded aircraft that the Brazilian Air Force is still flying. My aircraft in profile this month is the Dassault Breguet Super Étendard and its updated version, the Super Étendard Modernisé. I'll give you a little bit of a history of the type, its use by the French, the Iraqis, and of course the Air Force that it's most famous for in Britain, the Argentinian Naval Air Service, with its use in the Falklands campaign. Colour Conundrum this month has Paul Lucas looking at Shackleton and Seamew MR2 finishes from 1949 to 1972. As ever, Paul delves into some of the darker corners of British aircraft finishes and comes up with some unusual schemes and information. The colour profiles for this and for the aircraft in profile are as ever by our wonderful illustrator Sam Pearson. To tie in with the aircraft in profile, we have a Super Étendard Modernisé next. This is Vinny Pompeo's take on 148 scale kinetic kit, finished in Argentinian naval markings. The Argentines managed to acquire some of these updated machines, but never managed to put them into service in the 2000s, principally because they were denied access to spares to actually get the machine serviceable again. I suspect if you're ever worried about Argentine use of Super Étendard Modernisés, you'll probably want to thank Martin Baker for that. Anyway, enough said. We drop back down to 172nd next. Sergio Bellomo provides us with Airfix's Bolt and Pull Defiant Mark 1. You don't see many of the smaller versions of this Airfix kit made, and he does a really, really nice job on it, so it's nice to see that getting a bit of exposure. Harvey Lowe returns to Sam for the next feature. This is Fine Molds 148 scale A6M5 0 Model 52. Harvey finishes it in one of the schemes seen when captured examples were ferried to the USA, and these are quite often portrayed as a two-tone camouflage, but Harvey provides new information which sheds light on how this unusual scheme actually came about. It's a lovely model, it's a lovely build, and it's a great article. World War II is still on our minds for the next feature. Rob van Dodvaart is here with 148 scale Italeri, the Macchi C200. This is the Serie 21 to 23 kit, and it's finished in a very attractive desert blotchy scheme. Italian aircraft always look great in that, and Rob does it full justice. For those wondering if there's anything in small scale this month, Mike Verrier brings up the back of the magazine with a 1/144th scale build of BPK's CE-144A Challenger, finished in Canadian Air Force markings. It's one of those jets that actually looks really nice in a kind of low-vis scheme, and Mike does a really nice job of it. We have the usual updates of product news and reviews, book reviews with Colin Flying Pickett, and you can whet your appetite for the next issue with to see what's in coming next month. Who knows, I might even find time to finish a kit for that one, so wait and see. And hitting the newsstands at the same time as Scale Aircraft Modelling is the June issue of Military Model Craft International, that's issue 356. Editor David Grummett brings you an assortment of armoured fighting vehicles, as usual, and we start off this month with an in-depth look at Gecko's new 1/16th scale Panzerjäger 2 für Pak 40. That's the early production kit. We follow that up with AK Interactive's M1008 troop carrier built by Rick Lawler. It's a lovely little bit of modelling. And we move on then to more American tracked vehicles with Stefan Szymanski, who brings us the 1/72nd scale Model Trans M48A3 in a Vietnam setting, so you can expect plenty of additional armour on the turrets, the infrared searchlight on top, and a lovely little diorama with some foliage and a rather fetching little set of road signs in the background. It's a lovely little build that, and set off very nicely. There's an American theme continuing now, where David Doyle brings us armour in profile. This, of course, is for the M113 Armoured Personnel Carrier and its variants. This ties in with the new Guidelines Publications book on the M113, also written by David, so it's very much a taster of what you can expect if you purchase this excellent book. We move to the desert now. Chris Johnson paints and weathers Takom's M1 Super Sherman. So it's obviously finished in Israeli markings, and for my money, the Sherman always looks good when it's got a slightly longer gun barrel on it. And it always looks nice in a sort of desert scheme as well. It's very nicely finished and looks very much the part. Change of scene for the next feature. Peter Hanno presents a project inspired by the Wagner Mutiny from June 2023. Now, you may remember that was when Russian mercenaries decided that they would march on Moscow. Rather ill-fated event, but the diorama is well worth a look, and it's a great article to boot. Ramon Segara is back for the next build, ICM's new SD-KFZ 3B Ford half-track with Flak 38. That's titled Achtung, Sie fliegen! Watch out! Aircraft! David also visited the Mozon show this year, one of Europe's premier modelling events. So there's a report in there by the illustrious editor of dioramas and vignettes that he saw there. And to bring up more diorama action in the magazine, we have Factory of Fire next. Giampiero Bianchi presents an ambitious 360-degree diorama of the Battle of Kharkiv. Plenty of World War II German equipment on view there, with an array of uniforms. There's a very nice Schwimmwagen, and it's all finished in a predictably chaotic manner. Really nice piece of ensemble diorama building there. There's a roundup of the latest military titles in words and pictures, and the magazine finishes with, of course, a quick sneak preview of what you'll see in the next issue. As I said, this hits the newsstands on Thursday, the same time as the podcast, but if you want to get it beforehand, then like all our magazines, just head over to guidelinepublications.com, take out a subscription, and it will land on your doorstep the day before, so you don't even have to brave our lovely British summer weather and go down to the newsagents for it. That's it for this month. I'll be back next month with more updates. Take care and see you soon.
Please support Models for Heroes, as sometimes building a scale model can help rebuild a person. Visit modelsforheroes.org.uk. And now, our featured interview. Conversations with the people shaping the hobby, from individual modelers to leading manufacturers, exploring every aspect of scale modelling together.
So Benchmates, as we've said previously, we try to cover all genres of modelling on the show, and today is no exception. We are joined by Stephen Woodhead, Director of Gunpla UK, to give us a deep dive into the ever-expanding world of Gunpla, mecha, and modelling in general. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So we'll start off with probably the most basic question in what the flying is Gunpla modelling?
Yeah, I knew this was going to be the first question, and we can go down the Wikipedia route where essentially Gunpla is Gundam plastic models, which in theory it's out of the box building, no glue, no paint required, and you can have a finished product without, I want to say not massive effort, but with a lot less effort than say painting. It's very hard because we know, and I think some listeners are going to know this, Gunpla is essentially, I wouldn't say a brand, but an abbreviation. It's now become where it's covering lots of things where people look at it, they see a giant robot that's snap build, no glue required, and they go, oh, that's Gunpla. Brilliant, but it's not always right. If you're going to boil it down, it's giant robots, straight out of the box built, without or very little sort of involvement, if you don't want to, in terms of painting or anything like that.
Okay, so would you actually compare it to something, and I'm going to be very basic here, so apologies if I offend you with the first question, but are you looking at something like the Airfix Snap-Fit kits for children and younger modelers to put together? Or is this the next stage up from that?
No, I'd say it's along the similar lines of what you'd class as an entry grade or a super SD grade. So this is a fairly recent thing in the last few years. They've essentially, Bandai, who's obviously produces the bulk of what your class has gone, they've created an entry grade where it is very simple to be in Japanese, but like any model kit, you're following a screw stroke runner and its numbers put them together. So, I mean, if somebody was coming into it from a traditional modelling world, i.e. planes, trains, tanks and everything else, they would probably pick it up quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've said it's I'll say, a simpler form of modelling in comparison to what the bulk of the audience probably builds at the moment. But there's a lot of innovation in the quality and the engineering in comparison. There's a lot of kit manufacturers would absolutely, well, certainly the builders would actually get overexcited about the fit of parts, etc. But also, you've got multicoloured injection plastic.
Yes.
On the same sprue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the technology they use, it boggles the mind. And they've recently opened a museum over in Japan, which is also, you get to look at the factory and the makings and the mold and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the way that it works in Japan at the moment is you have to be a Japanese national in order to go there and go through the museum. Yeah, it's as daft as it sounds, but because it's obviously Japan, these type of things, gunpla modelling, giant mechas, is so big over there, and it's now trickling into the Western world, they have to limit things like that. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can't take pictures either.
Okay.
Because there is technology there and there are things that potentially they don't want people to readily see and be available for the competition. But yeah, it's definitely a growing hobby, and I think that people of a certain age are struggling to understand where this has come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm of an age, I'm in my mid-40s now, where I straddle sort of both sides. So, me personally, I can always remember my first Airfix model. It was one of the very inexpensive, back in the mid-90s, Eurofighter Typhoon. They're probably still producing it now. Oh, the exact same thing. And I can remember getting glue everywhere and everything. And my father, God bless him, he went, that's it, no more. No more. Well, then I found Gunpla, and Gunpla's a lot different. So, because again, even in the old days before we got this sort of modern interpretation of all the grades, and I'm sure we'll go through the grades and what they mean and what they're about, but that's where it started for me. So I've gone sort of full circle, strangely, as my own personal journey. I started out with Airfix and things like that, and then for whatever reason, obviously, because anime has been a big part of my life since I can remember, finding that there was Gunpla models out there and models of Gunpla that were so easy. It's hard to get hold of, but easier to build in terms of an out-of-the-box and finished products, depending on how quick you build, between half a day and up to months in a paint one. So it was good, and I think that, and I think I mentioned this to Shane, in this day and age as well, we're also of a generation that wants instant gratification, I think is the nicest way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an easy road into it in terms of model building. But we do know that also Revell's come up with their click system. They do work with Bandai for Star Wars. Obviously, Airfix has got assist as well. I'm not sure about Tamiya, to be honest with you, because I'm not a big enough on Tamiya at the moment. So, well, it's easy to sort of, in my head, to explain what Gunpla is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the easiest way, where I can, for people to understand it, think of it as a giant robot, out of the box, easy to build.
From what I've seen of the anime that you've been talking about, from when I was a kid, we had, yes, I did have colour TV in those days before you say anything, Nev, so I can see a look going through your face.
I was going to say you were there, the original Godzilla, weren't you?
No, I was actually going to say the original Transformers.
Yes.
So people of my era would think of something along the lines of perhaps an advanced form of Transformers cartoon.
Yeah.
As a basis to actually try and build a visual model of what we're talking about.
I understand it. A lot of people, I mean, within my real life personal realms, when I try and explain to somebody what I do and what I sell in the core of my business, and I got it from Stephen last week when I was down at with the Models for Heroes, when it's just Transformers, isn't it? And you go, oh, because it's not Transformers. There's somebody that actually gets into it and obviously has to control it. And then you start going down an anime rabbit hole and trying to explain it. And yeah, sometimes it's just, you know what, you're building your own Transformer. If that's what you want to see it and say in your head, you're building your own Transformer. And yeah, you can say that. The thing is, and again, before I started recording, Shane meant, Shane said about the grades, there are offshoots all over the place. Pin each one down is really hard. I even had to read up this afternoon to make sure that what I was saying that works in the head is actually what is, I wouldn't say an official definition, but what is Gunpla? What are the grades? How best can you understand it? How somebody that's spent their life getting back aircraft carriers, submarines, that's done that, how can you convince them to maybe try it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a couple of different reasons people try it. I mean, I think just to cut in, so when we're looking at, I guess, some of the main reasons, a lot of it is that creativity, especially because in some of the grades, like the entry grades, you don't need any tools either. You can sit there, you can create something. It is relaxing. And you mentioned about that recognition. I know we discussed it with Rob and Spencer a few weeks ago, but it's all about having something that's tangible. I've sat and spent time on my bench. Look what I've got. My goodness, it looks exactly like I thought it was going to look like. It looks like my favourite character from my favourite anime. Yeah, I nearly said cartoon then, but I could feel Jacob's death stare through the door. But that's what it's about. And your creative journey that you mentioned there about being on the bench when you were young and building an Airfix model on the kitchen table, that was exactly like me. And even with the kids got me back into that hobby, sitting on the kitchen table, building models for them. And my eldest boy now is nearly 12, and we sat there and was watching, I think it might have been Dragon Ball or something. So I used to watch this when I was a kid. And then Gundam came up. And I was like, Jacob, we need to sit and watch this. It was Gundam Wing. This used to be my favourite show when I was growing up. You need to watch this with me. And we sat there, binged watched the whole lot. And I was like, my goodness, you can build models of these characters, Jacob. And he was like, we should get one, Daddy. And then we ended up getting 1, and then 2, and then 3. And then as you can see in my cabinet behind us, about 25.
Just me when I say I've got boxes and boxes of built Gundams that are just, I build them and I just don't have space for them because initially, again, for those that are obviously listening, my entire office is covered in everything you could absolutely imagine as Gundam from multitudes of different series.
So, Steve, we talked about the premise behind what people are actually building with the Gundam and the story behind it. What a lot of modelers probably don't appreciate is the scale in the Far East of Gundam versus conventional modelling. Hasegawa was massive in aircraft and other subjects through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and has virtually completely fallen off of the conventional scene rather than just decals of repops of existing tooling, and seems to be going down the Gundam route. An example I've heard recently on production volumes, which is eye-watering to put it mildly, the Tamiya 148th P-38 Lightning, they were looking to produce around about 10 to 12,000 units as a successful product run for the company. With Gundam, I believe we're looking in the region of between 100 to 150,000 units off of a set of tooling.
That's probably about right.
That gives a scale of how big anime and Gundam is in comparison to conventional modelling. And it's a lot of manufacturers are using the profits from the Gundam to produce the conventional subjects now. And without it, they're not able to do it. So from the industry side, how do you actually see the progression in Europe and the UK?
When it was introduced, let's say, from 1995 onwards, and that's when obviously Gundam Wing came out, and it was like the first, and just to explain a little, because I've got to explain a little bit about Gundam so it helps people to understand. So obviously it's very, very similar. If people understand in their head, is every series is different. There are interconnecting series early on, but from about 92, 93, they decided to step away what you could call the main timeline. And there are videos out there that talks about all the timelines and different universes and everything. But what we saw or what we've seen in Japan and obviously East Asia predominantly is they've grown up on this anime and this style of cartoon, and it's progressed from there. And the want and the need, much like you'd probably expect, again, some of the listeners are probably from a Warhammer perspective, the lore around Warhammer, the lore around Gundam and Gunpla, it is massive and sprawling. So essentially building a Gunpla model is just somebody's ability to reach into a particular series, a particular Gundam or a particular mobile suit as such, and be able to own it and look at it. Much in the same way, for example, that somebody who is absolutely in love with the Spitfire, because of the stories around it, what it means to us as a country, they will go out and they will build maybe 10 different ones. And that's essentially the way it's grown in the South, in Asia. We're playing catch up in Europe and the UK because we didn't get that from sort of 1980 onwards of giant robots, with the exception also of Transformers and a couple of other things that Saturday morning cartoon grow-ups. So and now to understand how it's getting bigger is we do have a generation where there is no more Saturday morning cartoons. There is no more lore behind anything. Or, for example, we could talk about it again. I'm a child of the late 80s and 90s, so I understand, everybody understands E-Man, Transformers. We'll keep going back to that because it's easiest to understand. And people went out and bought these things. This is no different, except for it's a model. And again, much like people sort of revere, your traditional models, and you want to build it and make it as best you can, because you get to own it and look at it every day. And I think that's the difference, but it's quietly coming through. And like I said, it is like a bull in a china shop at the moment. And I can say, hand on heart, that 5 years ago, when I started Gunpla UK, I never expected to see it in chain places. And again, I don't want to mention particular places because obviously I'd end up rattling off loads, but there are now chain retailers out there that are stocking these items. Now that's good and bad, because it's bad for me because obviously the more people sell it, the less money I make, because it's because it's throwing. But it's also, I have to look from somebody that's within the community that builds Gunpla and loves, lives, breathes it, takes it home with them. But yeah, it's growing, it's getting bigger. I think that, yes, you are right. Companies, Asagawa, Bandai, not so probably, they're bringing out their own ranges because they've seen how well Bandai have had it for 40 years and they're playing catch up. So we are going to see it, and it is going to grow because, again, it's all about the generation and the differences in generation. I don't think at all that in 20 years' time we're not going to see traditional models and traditional model builders. I don't want to see it because it's something that I grew up with, it's something that I understand. So whether somebody comes into the hobby as a whole and wants to divert and go build tanks, planes, trains, automobiles, or build giant robots, it's somebody that's coming into the modelling atmosphere, the modelling sphere of the world, where we could all enjoy it and respect different aspects. I'm not always going to be building what I'm building now from a traditional model sense. But conversely, I'm not going to stop as well building Gunpla or Snap Build.
Yeah. Okay. You raise an interesting point. You're probably not aware, but the show's actually picked up in 82 countries worldwide, including the Far East, etc. And the European model of the Gunpla experience is nowhere near as advanced as is in the Far East, as you said. But your mentioning of the ability to be able to pick up some of these models in conventional supermarkets where you actually buy your groceries, etc., is the same way that Airfix and Revell are putting some of their starter sets. So people, when they're out shopping, build something. And from that point, they start to get into the hobby. They start to expand in the hobby. And then they actually want to go further and further. And that's where stores and the experience that you provide obviously come in, because your supermarket is not going to become carrying any of the master grade or perfect grade kits that you can actually get on the shelf for a smaller audience, as it were.
Absolutely. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm damn sure that there are negotiations with somebody like Tesco's to stock, at the very least, the entry-level kits.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not anti-business, but I think that once I start seeing something like a master or a perfect grade sat in Tesco's is the day I go, I'm done. I think one of the major differences people are struggling to understand is, why can you just pick it up and build it straight out of the box?
Mm-hmm.
And the simple answer is, it was never targeted adults initially. It was targeted to 10, 11, 12-year-olds. In the Japanese world, they don't want to make a mess. My bench in my office down at the store is an absolute mess. It is. You have never seen anything like it, honestly. People don't come in and go, you build on that. I go, yeah, well, but I make a mess. It is what it is. But that's because I'm building, obviously, a non-Gunpla, what you class as a traditional model at the moment. I have loads of customers, some of my best customers that come into the store, never watched anything to do with Gundam or Gunpla. They just like the fact that it's a giant robot. And that's it. I built myself a giant robot. Oh, brilliant. And I can only say that it's growing. Now, is it growing at the pace that outstrips the production? No, not yet. It did at one point. Mm-hmm. But in the last 12 months, there has been a shift where the availability of Gunpla throughout the UK has massively increased versus what it was like COVID and post-COVID.
Okay.
When I set up Gunpla UK was just after COVID. I can only describe the sort of growth and the production rate as increasing and increasing even further.
Okay, what sort of expansion are we looking at? Are we looking at 10, 20%, do you think?
Per year?
Yeah.
I would definitely say from a business point of view, year on year, I can say that sales fluctuate between 1,700 and 50% increase.
Okay.
So, yeah. And a lot of people say, back again, I'm not going to mention numbers.
No.
In terms of people getting into the hobby, the orders, that is the sort of increase we are seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's starting to stabilise right now. And that's an interesting thing as well. But the stabilisation, from my business perspective, and not these massive leaps, is primarily down to availability.
Right.
Excess of availability, which means that I think they will continuously increase production. I think we're going to definitely see kits coming out of China, not the bootlegs, because, Bandai are very litigious, trust me. But these third-party kits that are very well designed and very stylized, based around Gunpla, but not Gunpla.
Mm-hmm.
And this stuff is amazing that's coming out of it. And I've seen some designs. I've seen some third-party, not so much bootlegs, but larger and more detailed interpretations of Gundams and MS, which have come up in shows. And they are knocking it out of the park. How long before we do get a steady and correct supply of these no law or anything, just it looks amazing things that come out of China? They're going to start ramping up production. Obviously, Japan, Bandai, just opened a new factory. They're ramping up production based on it. So, yeah, some of the increases in the UK are sort of getting to a real high point, tipping point, I would say, where it's not mainstream, it's still niche. But because of the way it's being marketed now in the Western Hemisphere, it's at a tipping point where we will see it overtaking, unfortunately, traditional model. That's where I see it going.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't me being sort of elitist about Gundam and stat build, but we have got a generation that maybe doesn't understand traditional models and the connection. Myself, obviously everybody here that's so attached to what we call traditional models. Mm-hmm. They don't have that same attachment, especially as we move on. And obviously we talk about 2 world wars when obviously the jet age came about. People are now not seeing that. They're not looking back to that and appreciating what it was and therefore wanting the model. They want slightly different. They're seeing a lot different sort of media that's put in front of them. Doesn't involve that. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality that I see. And again, I will never stop building all different types of models. And I hope that we do see these being available, all different types of models being available moving forward, and even more increasing.
So, Stephen, my question, like I say, you've gone down the rabbit hole already, but obviously, as someone who doesn't understand Gunpla, doesn't work in that space, you've talked a bit about how Gunpla is its own universe with its own canon and characters and things like that. So as someone from the outside looking in, when I search these kind of items from Japanese distributors, mecha's the big word, but just because it's a mecha doesn't mean that it's Gunpla or Gundam. So could you just talk a little bit about the differences? I know you've said that we're going to start seeing like the Chinese spin-offs, but how's the current alternatives that are broadly mecha? How are they interacting with Gundam and Gunpla as it is now?
I think you answer two parts this. The word Gunpla is basically what Bandai said. That's what they abbreviated to. But I think because people do see giant mecha, giant robots, they assume it's all Gunpla without understanding the lore and everything. And Gundam is essentially a Sunrise Struck Bandai brand. So that's the brand name. It's much like everybody calls a vacuum cleaner an Hoover. Because you say, I'm going to go Hoover up. Regardless of what sort of brand of vacuum cleaner you own, you call it an Hoover. So I think that's where it can cause confusion. I think the best way to describe it when we talk about Gunpla, quote unquote, people understand it, snap build and Plamo is probably better catch-all umbrella than Gunpla. So if you look at an umbrella, the top would be snap build stroke Plamo, and then it branches out because you've got different manufacturers. For example, Good Smile, they have Max Factory brand, have the Moderoid range as well, which are giant robots. Some of them are of their own designs. Some of them, again, are from IPs that people will probably recognise. For example, Good Smile do Robocop, snap build kits. People will see it and go, oh, it's a Gunpla kit, it's a Robocop Gunpla kit, because that's how the brain processes it and the easiest way to describe it. The stuff that's coming out of, for example, China, of the original designs are brilliant, and their designers probably are now starting to catch up on the same level as Bandai's designers. This is why we are seeing these kits, albeit grey imported from China.
The only thing I have there, Steve, is let's say a non-Bandai manufacturer comes out with a mecha, whatever it is, can that now be incorporated into the Gundam sort of canon? No, not at all.
No. Gundam as a brand, as an IP, is its own thing. Guys in China are producing what could be considered third-party kits that look like Gundams. Essentially don't exist in Bandai's canon and Sunrise's canon for Gunpla. Even though they are giant robots, and I know it's hard to differentiate, it's just the unfortunate thing is because Bandai were the first ones to do it, they get, I wouldn't say the rights, but they get to brand it as...
Yeah, it's like gatekeeping, isn't it?
I think the idea of gatekeeping, especially in sort of the snap build and Gundam and giant mecha, is very hard to do. There is an element that want to go, it's Gundam and nothing.
Yep.
But they're not always the best designs by Bandai. And I think at the moment, when you compare something coming out from Bandai versus something coming out from some of the Chinese independents and their own designs, some of them are markedly better because they are listening to what people want from a giant robot sense, rather than Bandai fixated on making sure that it's series faithful, whatever that series is that year.
Just going on to the point where you were talking about Bandai own the rights for obviously their canon, their IP. So when it comes to the third party Chinese kits, I think the best way to understand it is that a lot of this stuff that's coming out of China is inspired by the designs that are from the mainstream animes. Then obviously not carbon copies. I was just showing the Monument EX there, which is clearly influenced heavily by a certain Gundam from a certain anime, influenced by. It's not a copy, can't be.
It's a grey area, let's say, because they're not, from a perspective of China, they do produce bootlegs. And they've been raided in the last couple of years. A few got shut down. Obviously, Bandai got very litigious about not so much the third party stuff. Nudge, nudge, wing, wing. It's different enough so they can't have a go. But the straight bootleg stuff, it is terrible. And you don't want to attach to it. I've had people from China send me samples of stuff. It's terrible. It's not good. So when it comes to bootlegs, yeah, I wouldn't touch them. But when it comes to third party, personal level, I can say that they're knocking it out of the park. From a business level, I can't really stock it because essentially the cost to me to stock these items is virtually, if not a little bit more expensive than somebody buying one direct from China. From on AliExpress, let's say, or other sites. Just can't compete with that, with the prices. That's just how it is. So to understand it, it's fine. If somebody looks at something and goes, oh, that's a Gundam or that's Gunpla, that's fine. People will understand it. Nobody's going to correct you and go, well, that's not a Gundam. Because if they are, forgive me for saying this, they're ass. Because that is gatekeeperish. You can't expect to have it all your own way, especially given the sort of opinions about grain imports and other things. So, yeah, you don't need to be confused. No one needs to come into sort of building, snap build, get confused because they look at everything and go, well, that's Gunpla. I wouldn't be named Gunpla UK for no reason. Somebody types in Gunpla, they're going to come to my site and, they're going to go, that's Gunpla UK. Best marketing ever when it's free. Absolutely. So, yeah. Does that help, James?
Yeah, it does, definitely. And a little bit playful there in terms of gatekeeping, but you do add a bit of nuance, don't you, in terms of they're not too bothered about people having a different spin on it, but they are bothered when people try and do a carbon copy. So I wondered, Stephen, if you could just talk a bit about, if we get back to Gundam proper now, obviously Shane and yourself have introduced different grades. I know we've got things like entry grade and your website at Gunpla UK, that's how you differentiate different categories as well. So for someone getting into it, what are the different grades in Gundam?
So if you want to look at the sort of the main grade without weird offshoots and roundabouts, your first one, obviously, a lot of people, and we've heard us talk about entry grades, but the simplest kit, you might see 3 or 4 sprues, very simple instructions, very easy to build. Even zero experienced people could probably build them in an hour. Now, building we'll go through the grades now, we'll talk about building within an hour and things like that. Then you've got what most people say was high grade. So high grade, if you consider, if you think from non-understanding of Gunpla point of view, somebody's coming in from traditional modelling, high grades is probably where I'd start from a cost versus finished product, because it's a balance with high grade. It's not going to be superposable. It's not going to be highly detailed, but it's at a price point for the most part where you're spending no difference to, say, a 144 scale Apache helicopter, because they're the same. I would consider them. The best one to use is obviously Ravel's numbering 1 to 5. So whereas you consider an entry grade as 1, high grade will be 2. Might take you an hour to 2 hours if you want to put loads of work into it in terms of making it the best it could possibly be, sanding nubs down, cutting off the runners. Then you might take a couple of days to get it absolutely 100% right. You're not, but then there's this weird thing, and this is where it gets a little bit strange and a little bit confusing. The next 2 grades, real grade, which is a 144 scale, and master grade. The best way to describe the real grade, it's more of an advanced kit. In fact, I put a real grade at a 4 rather than a 3. And I can see that Shane's nodding his head at me. And this is because 2 reasons. The real grade, which where Bandai say actually next step up from the high grade, it is more complicated. You've got a similar scale, but with a lot more parts, a lot more smaller parts, and a lot more challenging, especially with like some people like me. I've got big fat fingers, massive hands, and pieces of great loss. So just to recap, the difference between a high grade and a real grade is detailing and posability.
You raise an interesting point there. You've said posability. Are these actually articulated then? So it's not just a static component.
No, you can position them how you want. Now, you have to be careful with any of the grades when you because some of them are very, very tight fitting joints, arm joints, knee joints, foot joints, and can easily break and snap if you're not careful. So they are posable in lots of things, and people can search across the internet, and some people do some amazing shoots, pictures of some amazing posability, especially in real grade, because of the size and the price point versus a lot of master grades. It is great, but I would say it's more technically harder than, for example, a master grade.
Okay, and you've also talked about fit. We mentioned earlier about the quality of the tooling in comparison to conventional models. Do you actually see fit issues in the conventional sense that we are used to, with it requiring filler and things of that nature to actually get a tight finish? Or are we talking about almost a machined finish when you actually snap the components together?
I would say tolerance is on Gunpla kits because of the way the perception is it's out of the box and build it.
Mm-hmm.
You would find that the machining is a lot more exact. In fact, only once in my entire time have I known Bandai to get machining wrong.
Okay.
The middle tolerances are almost 100%. Now, again, when I compare it, for example, to the Revell Platinum Edition 9 Series 9 Submarine 505, the tolerances on that, and I hate to say it, if you're listening, are shocking. In some cases, I don't know when it was produced, but when I put a Gunpla kit together, it's almost perfect. In fact, if something's gone wrong, it's not the kit's fault. It's generally your fault for not reading and understanding this instructions. I've done it. Trust me, I did it a week ago when somebody said they were having an issue. So, yeah, when you're looking at the machining, they're a lot more exact, but also because of the way that you build them, especially when you hit real grade and master grade and perfect grade, they need to have very, very little tolerances because they have to work, they have to move, they have to be positioned. And almost because of a lot of the detailing and the posability of them, not going to have the same higher tolerances, say, from a traditional model kit, because it's marketed as minimal work for maximum output for people. So I hope that explains it, Brownie. But yeah, their tolerances are a lot different. So that's real grade, 144 scale. And then the next one is master grade. Now, master grade is a strange little beast. It's a larger scale, and some people say, well, it's just a larger real grade. It is and it isn't. Because the trade-off with them going to the next price point and the next grade of master grade is they sort of might trade a little bit of posability with great detail and vice versa as well. Because I've seen some amazingly great posable kits, but the detailing isn't that great. But that's where you will come in, say, a bit more of a seasoned builder. Part counts are higher. It's 1/100 scale, which makes my fat fingers more easily built than a real grade. So that's why when somebody comes into it and wants to make a step up, I always say, no, go from high grade to master grade. Because real grades, they're fiddly, they're small parts, one wrong move and something breaks. And trust me, I've had it done to it again multiple times by broken arms and shoulders off a kit. And again, my fault. I've been a little bit over aggressive with moving some.
Something that you just raised that I hadn't actually considered before, but there's obviously different scales. Rather than it all being, in my simple mind, always thought that they were all to exactly the same scale.
No.
Okay, that's interesting. And just going back a second, the Revell German submarine that you were talking about, the U-505, that was originally tooled in 2013. really re-release in 2024 with upgraded parts.
Yes.
So we're talking about 13-year-old technology for the tooling.
Yeah.
Had design work, and it's been the increment of design tool and work on tooling has changed so much over the last few years. I can see why it's got a different tolerance to what you're actually talking about now for the Gundams.
I think the one major difference, now you've mentioned that, I would say is when Bandai, for example, produce the dies and the molding for a kit, they will use that for years. In fact, they don't just use that particular mold for one kit. They might get away with that. And you do see it in early real grades, not so much the modern real grade kits, where they're using the same dies for being a frame, for example. They will use it over five or six kits. And even now, a kit that was released last year was using the same die parts of a kit that was produced in 2011. It's good. So the designers, you never see anything Bandai advertising say new die used or improved. They'll generally just bring it out as a brand new kit, while still producing the original kit as well. And I don't know if any other manufacturers do that, but we have seen it, especially, when they do reruns, because they will do reruns. And you can pick up one that was manufactured in 2013 and one that was manufactured yesterday. They are virtually identical. Then there's very little change in it. Looks like Airfix will still be using designs and potentially molds from years ago,
if not longer.
Yeah, if not longer. Yeah, I'm only using Airfix as an example. I'm sure that everybody. But yeah, so in terms of the dies and everything, I don't think they change them that much. And if they do, they'll generally tell us. But again, 5 years. Once done a 2.0 as such, which came out a couple of years ago. And just for those people that don't know the RG 2.0, there is a kit called the RX 70-2, which is like the main thing in the original anime that was produced. And it doesn't matter what grade or anything, it's generally the first one produced that they produce in that grade. People can look it up. It's the one that you see, the giant Yokohama. And then you've got what you would consider the big daddy, the grade 5s, which is the perfect grade. It's a 160 scale. It's highly detailed. It's highly posable. They take so much time to do this design. Whereas, for example, in comparison to a traditional model kit, you will have loads of detail, but unless it's a specific kit, we've only detailed the cross section out. And I say that because I've got a couple of submarines from Revell where they've cut out a cross section underneath. There's obviously all the detail. When it comes to perfect grades and high grades really as well, you could take off one of the panels and it is detailed massively underneath. So they've thought about it from essentially the centre outwards. Every level is highly detailed. Loads of parts and absolutely amazing. I build one perfect grade every couple of years because it just blows my mind. Every time I build a perfect grade, I take so long on it because I want it to be perfect. It's the highest price point you could get is a perfect grade without going into spurious kits. Now, so that's perfect grade. Now, there are some subsets. There's figurized kits, which people still say they're Gunpla, because obviously it's a big umbrella thing. But they tend to be more human-looking animals, think Digimon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z figures. That's where they'll send to figurized kits. The other one's called the full mechanics, where you sacrifice a frame for loads of details. This is a 1/100 as well. And there is also mega-sized 148, which are just essentially big statues. They're there for the size, not for anything else. It's just a big piece of real estate that you've got on display. So they're not highly detailed. There's been very, very limited amounts made. I think there's 10 or 12, whereas compared to a high grade, there are a couple of thousand different high grades that have been produced. And then there's the weird SD kits. So that's Think of them as very similar to entry grade, but it's what's called super deformed. So they're squished down, small. They don't actually have a grade off the top. SDs they're called. And then you've got the OG first race, the FGs. These are literally the same things that it was producing in 1980. Literally, they are statues, and you might have 7 or 8 pieces to put together. And I can freely admit that I have some in store of those. They're built for nostalgia. They're not built for anything else. So I hope that helps in terms of grading. So I think the other thing, which, because we are talking about grading, and obviously everyone's here, you would call yourself a seasoned builder. Where would you start if you were coming from a traditional model build? Personally, I'd say go for MG kits. Really, because you're going to get an experience which challenges you a little bit. You're going to get an experience where the length of time you concentrate on that kit would be comparable to when you're building and making and painting a traditional model. If somebody was just starting out, and again, depending on their age as well, when I advise people in the store, if it's a 20-year-old that's coming in and saying, I'm new to it, I want to build one, I would probably say high grade. And because, again, no experience, very limited sort of knowledge. So, but an entry grade may get, again, similar to yourself, to sell to seasoned builders, might find it's quite boring. They're building in a day, they're back the next day. Because that gratification, that length of build time for somebody is still a great experience. Might not like, for me, I love the building. The end product for me is secondary. It's the journey to build it. And then obviously we talk about young people getting into 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Entry grades all the way, SD kits all the way. They're inexpensive. You can predominantly, as I've said, snap the entry grades off, out the runner, minimal. I mean, it's not going to be the greatest looking thing if you just snap it out and don't do any sanding, but it's an experience to say, well, I built that, I enjoyed building it, I love the fact that I finished it. What's next? I want to do more and I want to make it better. So yeah, I don't know how much you want me to explain to you. I think the other thing to really consider, especially when you're looking at getting into it and building, don't spend loads of money. There's no reason to. Don't run out and start spending 50, 60, 70 pounds on a set of nippers, but because unfortunately your experience level with those particular nippers that are that cost, you will break them very quickly and be sorely disappointed. From my company's sort of point of view, when somebody's just getting into it, we do what's called a introduction kit. So it just covers a random HG kit or a random entry grade kit, depending on the age, plus the basic tools to get you started. We've put it together purely because we don't want people coming in spending £300-500 on something or a bunch of kits, building one and going, wish I'd never done this. I'd rather and from my point of view as a business, I'd rather somebody come in, spend as little as possible, and then go, I've enjoyed that, I'll come back. Not, I hate it. Put it to one side. They don't want to talk to me.
What I was going to say, Stephen, is obviously, again, you're going down this route that I quite like. So you're thinking from the business point of view, and I run a very small model business myself, and this idea of having an introduction kit where you've got not necessarily requiring the manufacturer to provide that for you, but no, let's say you've got some ideal starting tools and an ideal starting kit, and it's a pretty low price point, like you say. But one of the things you mention is getting people coming back either the next day or a few days later looking for the next thing. But you also say that we're still behind the curve compared to, say, Japan. Yes. In availability, perhaps. So is there still that gap in terms of the choice that someone coming into the hobby in Japan would have versus what they'd have coming to your, well, not necessarily to your store, because I know you're obviously a bit of an expert, but more broadly in the UK, is there still that availability gap compared to, say, Japan?
Yes. But this is the short answer. Now,
next question.
Yes, Japan It's much like if you've ever built and dealt with Games Workshop, for example, will produce and supply the UK first. I would imagine because it's where they're based, it's the oldest audience out there for it. Conversely, in Japan, Gundam's been around since 1979. It's like the holy grail to them. And again, because they're so entrenched in the law, production for them, they will get, for example, one of the things as a business that I hate is delays. Customers are unhappy. And what, for example, happens, especially on something that's like a highly wanted kit, for example, the most recent release, the PG Unleashed New Gundam. If I had 1,000 of them, they'd be gone. I'd have sold them all. Well, what could I had a couple of them, and they went, and they were gone. But Japan got that January. I was surprised that we got it. In one case, they competitor got them when they weren't meant to get them, but they got them February time, and then most everybody else late March, early April. Well, that's a good thing. So that's Bob with what our suppliers, whether it's, and I'll mention suppliers, whether it's Cosmic, Bandai UK, dates are quite fluid. So we are always going to be behind the curve to Japan. People emailing about kit yesterday. It was released in Japan yesterday. Somebody was questioning me, why if it's been released in Japan yesterday, you don't have it? Because we're behind them. It takes a long time, even longer now, because of people being prats in the Middle East to get to us as a country. And just, sorry, Shay?
I was just going to say, it's still relative. So, for example, there are still kits of particular characters that I want to add to my stash because they're from my show. So, a Master Grade Gundam Epion is something that I really want to add to my stash. So, when they're available, because of the way the production runs work and accessibility is, if you really, really want something, you have to go and get it. It's a bit like when we talk about the Qatari Spitfire or the special edition Edward releases. If you really, really want it, these things are limited runs. They're not going to be around forever. So if you want one, you need to get it there and then. If it's available, you need to get it because of the way that these peaks and troughs are. And the irony is 150 odd runs on a sprue, it still isn't enough. It's still not enough.
And that's it. It'll never be enough. But the one good thing about all the manufacturers in the Far East, they don't just do one run and put it away and never look at it again. They are business oriented. They want to milk it as much as they possibly can. But they also understand the market. Because if I could sort of grade, to give you an example about sort of availability, Bandai will manufacture it, they'll do 150, 200, 300,000 in terms of a run. Japan will get the bulk of them, and the rest will go to sort of East Asia. Then it's the US. There is randomly a couple of places in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East that actually do. There's a Gundam base, actually, I think it's in Riyadh, off the top of my head. There is a Gundam base there, so they'll get supplied. Europe is last, because until Bandai UK got back into the wholesaling game of Gunpla, because that's an all different story. There was two European suppliers, 1.5, because unfortunately one supplier is based over in Germany. They're silly. But the main supplier, from my point of view, the guys I have the best relationship is Cosmic in Italy. But we are last, unfortunately, whether we like it or not. Again, conversely, probably because Airfix, I'm assuming, is still manufactured in the UK. I'm not off the top of my head. Maybe not. You're shaking your head. It's because I'm coming from I'm blind. But to give an example, a company based in the UK, they're gonna supply the UK first.
Yeah.
So it's other side of the planet. We're last.
Have you ever thought of buying direct at source from the factories out in Japan?
I don't have that sort of money.
Okay. Because obviously I'm a massive fan of the Japanese model manufacturers, and they, from what you're saying in terms of it's a limited run and then it's gone and you're going to have to wait your turn until it comes back out, maybe a year or two. It works so similar in terms of the Japanese manufacturers that they put, say, 1,000 kits out of a rerun, which has got a few updated parts. Like we were talking before about some of the little battleships that come out, and you think, I didn't get this the first time, I better get it. And you don't manage it because you just go on to the websites and it's back ordered or order stop. And I think it's like you're saying, Stephen, that interest, they take up that market so easily.
Yes.
In Japan. Do you think there's ever going to be a way around that? Is there going to be a European competitor that can, supply the European market first in the way that, say, Revel can for the modelling community? Would there be a Revel equivalent in the sort of Gunpla universe?
Now, it's an interesting situation because, for example, Revel, strange, and from what I understand it, and again, you guys have contact with somebody in Revel, so you can probably explain it more. Take, for example, Star Wars. This is a perfect example. Revel sell both their own Star Wars kits and Bandai's Star Wars kits, surprisingly enough. I think it's down to licensing and the way that it works.
Yeah.
So Revel has worked with Bandai to get it into Europe and get it onto us. Now, I am aware, now I have got stocks in it, Revel have their own click build range, which is growing. I built a couple myself. It's evolving. Are they going to go the same way as Bandai? Don't think the design philosophy that potentially are in these European manufacturers, I don't think they've got, forgive me, European manufacturers and suppliers, I don't think they've got the experience and the knowledge on how to produce, for example, a rival to a perfect kit.
Yeah.
We have to accept it was a long time to design a kit. The CADs, the modelling, the initial design, making sure the moulding's right, back to design because so much wrong. I don't think they would do it to that scale that Bandai and Good Smile and Cobra Kia do it. I just can't see it. It's going to be a lot of money. A brand new production line. Potentially having to learn how to put multiple colours into a die and get it right because they've got the experience, they've got the know-how, they've got the technology, they know what pressures to use, they know how hot the coloured plastics have to be. Obviously, are pumped in. I just can't see it. I love it. Yeah. But I just can't see somebody spending that money now in the current climate of the world on manufacturing a snap build kit 100% English without it losing the technical and basically the quality that Bandai can produce.
Yeah, it's a different design philosophy, build philosophy, manufacturing philosophy. It is totally different. And also, some of it might be down to the subjects. When you're talking about a mainstream, traditional model manufacturer, they're having to do their research on museum pieces that may or may not be 100% correct. And we had various conversations with different manufacturers about that challenge. Yeah, I can imagine it would. I can't see it either. Like I say, the chemical makeup of it all and how it all works, and yeah, quite simply the infrastructure needed to do that.
Well, I'm never saying that, but you don't know somebody about. I mean, like I say, the kits that are built, Revel's designed, they are very simple. I'd say an 8-year-old could knock them up in half an hour, and have very little sort of issues.
So just to expand on that, then, so obviously we've got like because I've gone through it with Jacob, but I'd be interested to hear your take on it as well. When you've got comfortable, you've built up a little bit of confidence, maybe. What would you say like the key things for people to know? You mentioned about the starter set, what you need to get off the ground. Are there any tips or tricks that you would recommend to people straight away and go, look, this is something that you need to know?
Yeah, if you were just starting out, I always tell people when they're starting out, don't be disappointed if you get it wrong. A lot of people come and show me pictures and phone me up and go, I've done this, I've cut somewhere, and I've said the same thing, don't worry about it. Mistakes happen. And I don't know much about the modern ways that the building techniques in terms of traditional modelers use. But for example, your basic set of twin edge nippers, they're all right to start with. They're basic, but very quickly you will notice that they're not the greatest thing. So you're probably going to go from very cheap nippers maybe to a decent mid-range 20 to 30 pound single edge set of nippers. That's the most important thing of everything. It's because it's your first and your second cut. Now, I don't know, obviously, again, Shane, I don't know how you build, but I've always built 2 cuts are always better than 1.
Absolutely. Yeah. To be fair, I think we actually put a message out across different groups, between us about what people would like to discuss. And actually, that's a really interesting point about 2 cut. So for a bit of context to our listeners, what that means is when you got your sprue and you got your part on there, what you would do is you would nip off the sprue, but you would maybe leave 2, 3, maybe 4 millimeters of the sprue on the piece. And then you would go in again for the second cut where you are effectively trimming off your excess.
And it's as close as you dare to go.
Yes.
Because obviously one of the major differences is the idea that you do not have to paint a Gunpla kit. You don't have to do it. So it's very quickly obvious to people that if you get too close or stress the plastic too much, and I've seen that as well, and I've done it myself, you will leave a mark, it will stretch burn, and no end of trying to tidy it up will get rid of it.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing, from a traditional modelling point of view.
Blue's my worst. I hate
blue.
Yeah, the blues are always the worst stuff in my head when I do it. You can see it from a mile away when I do it. And I've been building Gunpla kits for 20 years. 20 years plus from all then, yeah. So I think the understanding of that, and this is where the idea also of 2 different nippers come in, because your first cut, you want to do it with a cheap set of nippers. You're not bothered about them, probably because you're $2.99 from local hobby store, or God forbid you go to Mr. Bezos's place to go order them online. But it does happen. Business is business after all, and obviously. But that second cut, my biggest advice is, number 1, is making sure that you have a very good set of nippers, but an affordable price. At least initially, as you start progressing in the hobby. Now, the other thing is sanding. To sand or not to sand? It is a massive question. Now, when you're building a traditional model, you aren't that bothered because 99.9% of the time, you're going to paint it. I don't think anybody, by my sort of 10-year-old self, building a Eurofighter tank with a set of crappy hobby knives and some glued against everywhere, you're gonna paint that, so you're not massively worried. Whereas obviously when you're building Gunpla, you're not painting it, so your sanding technique is paramount. Now, 2 things that I have come to the conclusion with: 1 is a glass file. A lot of people look at me when I go the glass file, because they will come in week after week buying more and more sanding sticks of different grades. A glass file can do the job, most of them, up to 10,000. Now, you don't need that for Gunpla kits. You've gone too far if you make it shiny, is the word, especially Shane's on it. I can see Shane smiling. You've gone too far and you've ended up with a shiny bit of blue one. And that's not any sort of ulterior a bit of double on top.
There is a reason, Stephen, that I paint my kits now. There is a reason.
I think our American listeners are going to need subtitles or translations for this. Carry on.
Well, I lose my strong coat tracks. They're not using it. We'll carry on. So for anybody getting into it, yes, a glass file. Now, surprisingly, we don't, within production kits, don't have a glass file with that because of the price point. But you do get some sort of what you would class as graded files. You get a 400, you'll get 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 in these boxes on a buffing block. And you know what? And I've seen it happen. And I'm touching my nails when I say it. The missus nicks my glass files, as does everybody else that comes in that's female, because there is almost zero difference between a nail glass file and a modelling glass file. You don't have to spend 50, 60 quid on a glass file. the £2.99 one from Players Accessories. And I've said that because it will completely suffice and have no problems whatsoever. With the exception if you go too far. Now, if you go too far, Shane, and it goes a little bit shiny, the best thing to use is 4,000 or 6,000, or even just a buffing block. I don't think I've got one here in my office, but
No, the buffing block's a good tip.
the buffing block, because you can knock that shine back very quickly, but you've just essentially done in 10, 20 seconds what could have taken a couple of minutes when you're going down the grades and getting closer and closer. So yeah, glass file. The third thing is, don't ask my opinion when you've built it, because you're never going to get it. The reality is everybody builds at a different level. Everybody builds with different experience. Everybody's perception of when something is finished or not, and this goes for traditional models as well, is completely up to you. It is not for me to judge you on how you built something. It's not for anybody else. If you're happy with what you're built, or you're not happy, you're going to make tweaks and come back to it, you've got a little bit more experience with the plastics, how they actually work, then that's fine also. I like the journey. And I said, I would prefer the building than the finished product, because I built it now, and because of the way my mind works. Next.
Do you know what? Perfect isn't necessary, is it? And
there is nothing of perfection.
No, exactly. I think that is a common beginner mistake. I totally agree with you. The encouragement is to just build. And whether that is a traditional model, as we're referring to it on the pod, or if we're looking at a snap build kit,
yeah,
whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. Just encouragement to build. It's you. It's we mentioned it earlier, Nevs. Why you build.
To tell you a little story now, recently I'm going to be part of a documentary that's coming out later this year about neural divergence and how hobbies, whether it's traditional model building, whether it's snap build, or other sort of things which sharpen the mind and concentrate the mind, how it benefits you. And one of the guys, John, and you won't mind, I'll just call him John because he is called John, but he had an idea and I had to stop him, where he said, we're going to have a group of us, 4 or 5. We're all neural divergent. What do you think about us together building a PG kit? And I went, no, don't do it. And he asked, he said, why wouldn't you do it? I said, because everybody builds differently. When 4 or 5 people working on one kit, Timmy looks John, and John's done a brilliant job. But because of his experience level, and because he's obviously neurodivergence can affect a multitude of things, thank you, this is why I talk so much, it would be unfair for him to build it together. Your better option, because opinions matter, and people will get upset if they think, I think it's wrong. You know what I mean? Obviously people not understanding, but some things have come with experience, and some things just never come to you at all. Personally, I'm a terrible painter, to be honest with you. I'm left-handed, I've got fat fingers, I can't do detailing. Trust me, I have a go, I try it, people say it looks good, but that's how it is. Because people build at different levels, I think they need to understand that they're not going to be perfect out of the traps as such. Nobody is. Somebody might be, but what the hell? It's going to be one in a billion that's going to be able to just go, understand it, I'm going to build it, and it's amazing. Yeah, opinions don't matter. It's only your own opinion. As long as you're happy with building it, there's not a problem. And don't rush. It's not a race.
Enjoy the process.
Enjoy the journey. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody builds the doll different way. People look at me like I build and think I'm mental. They think I'm on a different planet. Because I start building weapons and stuff like that. And they go, why are you doing that? I said, because usually by the time I've finished building the main kit, can't be arsed with weapons. It ends up with a bean saber.
Yes.
Call myself and bean sabers are a thing. Just think like sabers. But that's just my process of building it, how I do it.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And again, that's your catalyst for enjoying that process and getting the most out of it.
Yeah, it is. It is. I wish I could build more. Trust me, I wish as a business owner, I could build more, especially as I said it to Shane before, that I might not be number 1, but I've got to be in the top 5 retailers for snap build, not just Gunpla, but snap build in the country. And I wish I had more time to build it. I wish as a small business, family-run business, I'm working all the time.
That's the reality though, isn't it? So just on that then, so with the kits sitting on the shelves, whatever, but if you were to say to someone, try this, try Snap Build, is there one kit that stands out and you go, oh, try that, give that one a go?
Oh, don't do it to me. Don't do it to me. People ask me what my favourite Gundam is and I just go, no, don't do it to me.
No, that's different. That's different. Favourite Gundam's different.
Well, that's different. And this is where I'm going to get really, really controversial. From an experience builder point of view, one of the most perfect kits you can build. If you're an experienced model builder, and this is where you're going to look at me and go, hang on a minute, he's just said something else completely different 5 minutes. The RG Zazabi.
No, yeah.
Or the RG Xeon. The reason being, and yes, they're RG kits, the 144 still, but they are the perfect balance of size over building. What was the best way to describe it? Just because it's 144, I think is the best way. Doesn't mean it's small. These kits are big kits. In fact, in some cases, they are bigger than MG kits.
Yeah.
But the challenge to build them, this is the payoff, absolutely amazing. I've not personally built the Zarsby. I've seen the finished product, but I know people will love to build it. It's a big red robot. It's not a Gundam, which is surprising that it's not a Gundam, technically. Both of them are not Gundams, but they are really nice kits to build. Really enjoyable. The Xeon I have built, like, all I get is 10 out of 10 for the Zazen. I personally built the Xeon. The reason why I'd say one of either of them and not just one of them is the Xeon is great because you're not dealing with legs.
Yeah.
And people that don't know what the Xeon looks like, think of it as a floating torso where the head pops off. His fingers have got, his hands can pop off and wires and stuff like that. Look it up, guys. Look it up. If you've never seen it, look at the Xeon. Beautiful kit. Very rarely in stock, though. They go very quick, then.
Yeah, very quick.
If somebody was just getting into it, though, it's got to be. I'm flitting between two, unfortunately. I'm going to say the Kasee Gundam.
Okay.
It looks like a giant Rio. If anybody looks at the Kasee Gundam, it's the RH-106 or 104 XI6. Some people say the C Gundam. I say Kasee because it's an X9. But that is a brilliant example of a mod HG. And it's a really nice, again,
it's a cool looking thing.
The 144 scale, it's just cool. It's like the Penelope as well. It's just a cool kit, but it's very modern. I would never give somebody, converse that, what's a kit that you would never give to somebody to build for this kit? I'd say 100% the RG Sinanji. It is horrendous. Never touched that as a first kit. Never touched that kit ever. Everybody goes, I'm going to have a go at it. And everybody goes, broke the shoulder. And it's the same, in fact, it's the same with the Unicorn kits, like in RG, the Banshee, and the Unicorn itself. All three of them share the same in the frame, share the same issues, and everybody brings it. And I do generally have, and I've had it, I can definitely need both fingers and toes to count the number of times someone has gone, I've messed up the shoulder on this kit. Can you help me? But, yeah, don't touch them. But as a first time don't touch kit, never go anywhere near it, I would say it's going to be HGGM. The reason why it's the HGM is the most complained about kit that I get phone calls when somebody buys it ever. And this is a weird thing. So if you look at the HGGM and just type in green, white, the kit's white parts are not white. It's like a weird washed out minty green. And everybody opens it, goes, why is it not white? And then they phone up and complain it's not white. And then you have to go through the entire explanation why that kit is not white. It's bizarre, but yeah, it's just one of those things that because of the way that they've photographed it, when it first came out, I think it's 2000 maybe, it's a very early HG kit. Number 20 in the lineup, so that's where it comes early. It is.
Yeah, it's a proper early one. Just having a look at it now, yeah.
I've not really one, and it's just not great. But if any kit needed an RG or an upgrade, it's that.
Yeah.
But because of the price point, between £10 and £11, it's not kit that you're not going to be over bothered about. I think a lot of people build them because they want to complete the entire set.
Yeah, I think that's probably a motivator, isn't it?
That's the major motivator.
And we're in a similar boat with Jacob. He's literally just waiting for a HG or an RG tall geese, and then that's it. He's got the whole lot then.
Tall geese, I don't think so. There is, and again, forgive me, this is the weirdness. There are HG tall geese out there.
Yeah, but I think the latest ones are the RGs.
They are very minimum. Yeah, the latest one is the RG number 28, and this is really sad that I know the RG numbers. But yeah, number 28 is the tall geese. Again, really nice little kit, but it is an early one. It's number 28, so you're still got to be careful with it.
Yeah.
Little grenade. In fact, I've done the MG special coating version. Yeah, yeah. Very nice to look at, but I don't want to touch them.
Nah, but mine is static.
You can look at it, a bit will fall off, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because the tolerances are so tight when they're manufactured. Some of them are just hand grenades.
Yeah.
Move it, heads come off. The fins come off.
No, you're good.
The only thing I'm thinking of is obviously the vast majority of our listeners are your traditional modelers. Are there any tips from the world of Gundam and Gunpla that you think your traditional modelers would benefit from? For example, I know you're obviously a submarine builder as well. I'm a massive ship builder. Is there anything that we would benefit from Gundam that would make our modelling better?
I don't think there potentially is.
Okay.
Reason being, you have 100 years worth of experience on a Gunpla builder. A lot of techniques, whether it be painting, clean up, panel lining, it's all come from the traditional modelling world, which is brilliant because it translates so well. If you looked at the differences between traditional model builders and a modern catch-all, in air quotes, Gunpla builders, the actual process of potentially cutting out of the runner, making sure the nub's right, and essentially any cleanup is virtually the same. The only difference, to try and explain it to somebody who wants or is debating whether to make the leap and pop that cherry of trying the first Gunpla kit, is don't be disappointed that you might not be painting it. I think there's a lot of experience in the traditional modelling sense where they look at the robots, and we've seen them in some IPMS shows and stuff like that. We have seen it, and it's a growing subsection. Don't be scared of it either. Don't be scared just because it's different. It's a giant robot. You might find that giant robots lead on to maybe watching something and understanding it is a different sort of angle of entry into modelling. It's probably, and again, this is not for new builders, the maybe traditional builders. You will understand once you've built, say, a master grade, that out of the box building can be just as fun as spending maybe up to a year perfecting, for example, a Lancaster bomber. It's setting a scene of where it's bombing target. There's very little difference. You're just picking a bit of a sci-fi genre. There are model kits out there that people may understand. Obviously, there's Star Trek model kits, the Star Wars model kits. So there is something that somebody coming into it will understand. But I don't think we could teach anything to a traditional model builder that they don't already know. Maybe glass files, I don't understand it. Maybe that glass files can make the life a little bit easier. Maybe speed up. But I don't think they could sort of say, Shane. I think that obviously both you and I are the Gunpla guy. He's obviously me being the owner of a company, and you've got understanding the building. You know,
yeah, I think it's interesting because when I look at it, obviously I can only talk from my point of view, and I came back into the hobby through building airplanes predominantly. I then discovered Gunpla probably 5-6 years ago, actually. Would I say I'm a better Gunpla modeler builder because of the knowledge that I've built up prior. Yes, in some cases. Yes, from a painting point of view, I would say that I have a lot of transferable skills from painting aviation onto my Gunpla kits. I'm quite comfortable with my airbrush. I'm really comfortable with how to modulate or layer or pre-shade, post-shade my kits, and that's what I choose to do. But the interesting thing here is flipping it on its head. The traditional snap kit builder would look at it and go, well, yeah, but you painted it. So that isn't necessarily traditional snap kit building. But I would say that just building stuff out of the box from a snap build point of view, being a lot more disciplined with my cutting and my sanding has definitely taught me the importance of spending that extra little bit of time to finesse. I can honestly say it's both sides. So from a traditional model point of view, coming into Gunpla, from a painting side of things, absolutely it's helped me. From a Gunpla point of view, in traditional modelling, the cutting, the finessing absolutely has made me a better modeller, full stop. And that's the best way I can give you both sides of the coin, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like I said from the very beginning, it is growing, and it is growing at pace. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how of a certain age where I grew up with giant robots and going into anime at such an early age. So I understand it from that point of view. The modern teenager that is watching anime, that's lost the law, much like Warhammer, they want that. They want their favourite giant robot.
Yeah, favourite character.
Whether that be a giant robot from Macross or a giant robot from Gundam. They want to hold it. They don't want to play with it. I do know people that do play with them. It's quite strange, to be honest with you, because they're breaking more than they're actually playing. But yeah, I would say that anybody that decides to even give it a try, from traditional model building to Gunpla, you may find you like it.
But yeah, it's completely different type of modelling. And if you are neurodivergent or if you are sensory, it definitely helps accessing.
Helps. And I know it does. I've seen the good that it's done for people, but I don't think it's as different and unusual and scary what traditional model builders think it is.
Agreed.
Try it. You might not like it. You might go, this is tosh this. I'd rather spend my time building X, Y, Z kit rather than paying attention when it's built. But just building it doesn't stop there. And one good thing that we haven't really talked about is kit bashing. When you talk about kit bashing, when you're talking about painting Gunpla as well, and people that all the modding that people do, we've touched on it briefly about obviously the competition.
Well, that has to be part 2, Steve.
I think it might have to be part 2.
It's been a great introduction, though, for people like me who don't know. We've really dipped our toe in, and like you're saying there, Stephen, you're teasing all these little avenues that people can go down with it if they haven't thought of it before, and sort of the techniques that you can hone. I know you both said there, there's nothing about Gunpla that you need to know. Actually, getting the basics right, getting your nipping and taking things off the sprue and sanding, we just ignore that so much of the time. We think, it's about the gluing, and it's about the painting, maybe about sanding, filling, whatever. But just getting the very first steps, the first 2 steps in the build right, I think a lot of people could take that away with them.
Just to touch on it very lightly, getting the kit built can be either the end or just the end of the beginning. And I know, because you don't have to stop there. And I'm sure that if we do a part 2, we can talk about modding, and I'll get some pictures from the guys, and obviously we can all have a look at them. It's just never ending. And I think that sometimes, and forgive me, traditional builders, in some cases, it's a race to that finality, because you might be putting yourself under pressure to go to a show, you want to enter X, Y, Z. Whereas, quite easily, a Gunpla kit can build, and I do know this because I have seen it happen. Somebody built a kit the night before an IPMS show, they came second, to win a prize. And they did nothing but build it. I don't like to see that because I think it's a little bit naughty, personally. But that's how little effort you can play. Conversely, when, people out there go look at is it GWB or something like that, a competition band area, the worldwide one.
Oh, the worldwide one, yeah.
Look at some of those created.
Oh.
They are just as good, if not better, than quite a lot of traditional model scenery stuff.
Oh, some of the diorama stuff is incredible.
It's absolutely amazing.
I think it's a good note to end because I'm starting to look forward to part 2 now.
This is the thing. It's all about educating and sharing knowledge across the whole model hobby spectrum. Because we've got builders, or got listeners that can't build, or feel like that they might have questions that they don't know who to ask. And we're giving them answers to questions that they didn't even know they had. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Stories. Thank you again, guys.
Coming up next, in episode 30, we are joined by Sam Dwyer, Scott Taylor from the Scale Modelers Supply, and John Marley from Piece by Piece.
Well, Benchmates, somehow, unbelievably, that's episode 29 and our first anniversary edition of Beyond the Box Art wrapped up. A huge thank you firstly to Luke Slaney-Hewitt from Revell, who was literally packing his case to go on holiday when he stopped to join us and give us a fascinating insight into Project Harrier and what's coming down the line for 2027. I for one cannot wait, and I know Samo from the Model Geeks is itching to get his hands on one as well. Our thanks as well to incoming IPMS UK President Rich Middleton and outgoing President Paul Regan for taking the time to join us during what was a really important time for the Society at the end of a very busy AGM at Coventry Airport. Which for me was a bittersweet experience as I popped into the air traffic unit that I used to manage next door to the museum just before the meeting to chat to my old staff members as the airport is closing permanently in June to become an industrial estate. What a waste. And of course a massive thank you to Stephen Woodhead from Gunpla UK for what was a brilliant conversation. Now, if you notice that about halfway through Stephen's interview, I suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth. There was a very good reason for that. Mid-recording, my husband appeared at the studio door saying he was really not feeling that well and needed an ambulance. Thankfully, after a rather unexpected diversion to A&E, everything turned out absolutely fine, though it did make for a fairly surreal moment when I was messaging Shane and now saying, keep talking, I'll sort this later. So, if the second half of the interview suddenly feels like organised chaos, now you know why. Unfortunately, we also had internet gremlins affecting Stephen's audio quality in places as well. But we'll absolutely get that sorted before part 2 in a few months' time because there's a load more to talk about. But genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you to everybody who's appeared on the show, everybody who supported it, every sponsor, every guest, every co-host, and every single one of you Benchmates listening around the world. I still honestly cannot quite believe that this started a year ago, and now this little audio-only modelling podcast is being downloaded in 82 countries worldwide. It's been emotional, exhausting, hilarious, chaotic at times, and above all, incredibly rewarding. So here's to the next 12 months of modelling, modellers and meaning. Thanks for listening, Benchmates, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye for now.